Hi everyone, welcome to Manhwa Demon. Please don't forget to subscribe, enjoy the video.
A teacher finds herself in the body of Lady Lucia, a woman who committed suicide. It feels like my veins are pulsing with alcohol instead of blood. I cannot breathe. Someone please help me. I am nauseous. My heart is pounding. Is this how it ends? I don't want to die. Where am I? Am I dreaming? Is this because I drank too much? I can't move. A servant said. My lady, you are awake. Are you all right? Lord Chamberlain asked about her that. Has she awakened? Yes, sir. But she has not fully come to her senses yet. Lord Chamberlain. So she's alive. There's no need for such a commotion. She only drank a trace amount of poison. She will be fine. Did she think she would get attention by poisoning herself? How foolish. They are all the same. Privileged young ladies enter the places by the dozens, hoping to win the Imperior's heart. The higher their expectations, however, the more disappointed they grow with time. In the end, they all meet the same fate. They put themselves at risk and test out their luck on the tightrope between life and death. I am so dizzy, I can't hear what they are saying. Am I dreaming? I can't believe she would got this far just to draw the Imperior's attention. Listen carefully. The Imperior is not interested in you. Most women die to drinking poison, but few like you manage to survive. Do you know what happened to all the others? Once they realized nothing had changed, they poisoned themselves again. Since you have managed to survive, why don't you take this opportunity to change something about yourself? Who knows? The Imperior might come around after he sees how you have changed. Who's that guy? What's he going about? Is he talking to me? I wonder who he is. Don't let anyone in. Including doctors and healers, understood? Understood. Lord Chamberlain. So his name is? Lord Chamberlain. That's not a dream. I awoke up totally different world. How is that possible? This is the kind of things only happened in novels. It's all too real to be a dream. It's cold, my lady. You are still recognizing from the poison. You need your rest. Poison? Did the old owner of this body try to kill herself? They keep calling me lady. It's miracle you are alive. Please don't starve yourself. The roses in the garden blooming beautifully. Would you care to take a walk? I had actually liked to rest a little more. Then I will help you to freshen up. Shall I heat some water for you? Lady Lucia? Are you all right? No need to be formal. I will go to heat some water. Lady Lucia. Yes. Thank you. This hair, I just can't get used to it. How did I end up this crazy color? These eyes too. I have never seen race with such a color. I can't get over my appearance. Where am I? Have a seat over there. Your Majesty. All right. Are you feeling dizzy? You really must be careful. You'll be back to your old self soon. Lady. I am fine. But thank you for asking. I can't believe they almost buried such a pretty girl alive. How awful. I don't know exactly what happened, but it sounds like this person poisons herself. I feel sorry for her even though I had nothing to do with it. My lady, I am worried about you. Please get some more rest. Lady Lucia. Okay, I am feeling fine. You don't worry. Lady Lucia thought. What happened to the original owner of this body? I want to find out more about who I am. Know about who this woman was. Hey, you know that thing, Lucia? I mean, I always write in. You mean your diary? Lady. Yes, my diary. I keep it safe for you. By taking diary. Lady thought that. Who are you, Lucia? She didn't committed suicide. She didn't accidentally die while trying to get the Imperior's attention. Then what happened to her? How did I enter her body? Lucia was not after power. She just wanted to someone who would truly love her. Although she came from an aristocratic family, she didn't have any illusion about the imperial family. Lucia only came to the Rose Palace because her father pressured her to charm the Imperial with her beauty. Grab his heart with your hands and his body with your legs. He sacrificed for her daughter in order to raise his social status. Then he never came to visit her even once. She was not an empress or a royal concubine. She was a pet bird that was waiting for the Imperior to take pity in her and open the cage. What happened before she collapsed? Beware the black rose floating in the water. What could that mean? One who becomes the Imperior's eyes. One who becomes the Imperior's messages. One who tells the Imperior what he wants to hear. He is not to be crossed. And he is not to be interfered with. Lord Chamberlain ordered the servant to show some kind of information. The servant requested the Lord Chamberlain by saying that, I am not authorized to show you. Lord Chamberlain said with curiosity, Is that so? Servant replied to him, Yes, sir. Lord Chamberlain said, Sounds you would like to show me, even your life depended on it. Well, nothing to be done. I will just go directly to His Majesty then. The servant became affared and said, Majesty? No. I will show you. I will just give it to you. Sorry, sir. I'm so eager to give them to you. Lord Chamberlain. It's fine. The servant said, Sir. Please look at whatever you wish. Lord Chamberlain. But if anyone else were to find it out? Lord Chamberlain looked at that papers and said, My word. The budget for the Rose Palace is absurd. Is it this much every month? The servant crumbled with fear and said, Well, this month's budget was a bit below average. We usually spend much more than this. If the Imperior heard about this, the servant asked to the Lord Chamberlain that, Would you mind not telling the Imperior? You see, I have a wife like a bear and children like bunnies back home. I am sure you are aware. I must bring home money in order to placate the bear. Surely you understand? I beg of you, sir. Suddenly Lord Chamberlain saw Lady Lucia and said, It's Lady Lucia. Where's she going? The servant said. I think she's on her way to tea time with the other ladies. Lord Chamberlain said. The budget for the Rose Palace mostly goes towards tea time and the necessary dresses, accessories, and so on. Lord Chamberlain thought that. Dresses and accessories for tea time? Do they drink the dresses and eat jewelry for snacks? The servant laughing and said, Your jokes. My lord! The ladies use those things to show off their beauty. They dress more extravagantly when they meet other women compared when they meet other men. Tea time is just not a place for socializing. His Majesty made it mandatory to attend. The ladies put their hearts and souls into dressing up in hopes that they'll see him here. Lord Chamberlain said that these ladies sounds pathetic. The servant said to the Lord Chamberlain that you must be careful with your words, my lord. Lord Chamberlain said to him, Has any girl in the Rose Palace so much as spent the night with His Majesty? Why must we indulge them when His Majesty has not even accepted one as his wife? The servant laughing at that point and said, Well, we have no other choice. They do come here in the hopes of becoming the Empress. We can't just let them run around in rugs. Besides, they spent every night waiting up for His Majesty. Couldn't we at least let them have their fun as a consolation? Lord Chamberlain asked the servant about his name. The servant became affared and said, Why do you ask my name? Are you planning to tell His Majesty? About me? Please don't. You see, I have a wife like a bear at home. On the other side, Lady Lucia's maid tell her that here is your gown for tea time. My lady? I think it'll suit you well. If you stand up, I can help you into it. This is a bit awkward. I have only ever worn simple dresses. The maid said to the Lady Lucia that it's amazing. You looking like a doll. Would you like to take a look? The maid again asked about the dress that. Is the dress to your liking? Lady Lucia said. Yes, it's perfect. The maid said, allow me to braid your hair for you. Are your shoes comfortable? Lady Lucia said. Yes. They feel fine. The maid said that it's the room at the end of the hall. I'll be waiting for you here. Lady Lucia said that there's no need to wait for me, go get some rest. The maid said that. Really? But? Lady Lucia said to her that, well, alright. I'll be back after tea time. In her diary, Lady Lucia said she was afraid of the women at the Rose Palace. I wonder what they are like. The maid said to Lady Lucia that, allow me to pour you some tea. My lady. Lucia replied to her that, thank you. A girl came toward the Lucia and asked to her with simply face that. How are you feeling? Your hands are so cold. Why don't you let Isla warm them up for you? Lucia thought by seeing her that did she prefer to herself in third person? That's peculiar. And a weird. Isla was late because she was changing dresses. The girl thought about Lucia that did she miss anything? If Isla had gotten here earlier, she wouldn't be sitting way at the end of the table. Then again, even if Isla had come early, she still wouldn't have been able to sit over there. The girl thought that Isla is so jealous of Swan and the many privileges she enjoys as the Grand Duke's granddaughter. She's almost guaranteed to spend a night with His Majesty. This is all so unfamiliar, I don't fit in here. But no one ever has. The girl whispers that. But the way, Isla was watching when Lucia collapsed. Lady Lucia shocked by knowing that. This girl saw Lucia take the poison? Then Lucia thought that. That must be why everyone keeps staring at me but wouldn't say anything? The girl again said about Isla that. No one has ever had the honor of a night with His Majesty. But Isla is sure Swan will get her chance sooner or later. Isla will never get the chance to be better than Swan, will she? Since it come to this, Isla will just have to convince her father. Lucia repeated her words. Convince to your father? The girl became furious. Convince him to use position to make His Majesty notice Isla when he's finished with Swan. Lucia said. Seriously? Isn't that a bit much? Lucia must feel the same way. Lucia thought that I just can't understand. She said to her that. Pardon? Are you still feeling ill? Lucia replied to her that. No, I am fine. It's feel like I am watching a play. I mean, I am living out Lady Lucia's life. But this can't be right. Because I am not Lucia. There was another young lady who said to Lucia that it's been a while. I didn't know you were ill. If I had known, I would have brought you some soup. The girl said to that young lady that Isla told you at the last tea time. Did you forget? The young lady says. Is that so? I don't remember. Lucia said, I am fine now. The young lady said again, is that so? Well, you did only take the poison for attention. Naturally, you didn't take enough to kill yourself. The young lady who seated there asked that I heard it feels like your throat is on fire when you drink it. Is that true? Did you do it on impulse? Surely you wouldn't do it a second time. Right. Lucia said that thank you for your concern. But I seem to have trouble remembering what happened before I woke up. If it comes back to me, I will be sure to let you know. Lucia read about these questions and thought that. I have to be cautious. I still don't know who tried to kill Lucia. I feel like I am suffocating in here. I need some fresh air. When Lucia returned, a pot broken by her. The lady asked that, "Are you okay?" Lucia? Lucia said that yes, I am fine. The young lady asked that, "Are you really lost your memory?" The girl whispered that, "I think so." "I see you look so fatigued. Why don't you go some rest?" Lucia left that place and thought, "It's so beautiful here, but I don't know how to talk to these people. Will I ever get used to this? How am I supposed to dive like this?" A guy came here and said that, "What are you doing out here?" Lucia said that, "I am just getting some fresh air, sir." Lucia thought that, who is he? He looks kind of grumpy. Should I not have called him, sir? How did Lucia treat him? It looks like he knows me. The guy asked to Lucia that, "Why are you sitting here? What's that stain on your dress?" Lucia replied to him that, "I spilled some tea." Lucia felt that it seems like he wants to tell me something. Should I ask him? I am not really in the mood for talking right now, though. The guy said to her that the food chain doesn't apply only to animals. It's the same for human. Today is only a stain on your dress, who knows what kind of torments they'll think up later. Lucia replied to him that, "I splitted the tea." Lucia thought about him that, what's his deal? The guy said that if you wouldn't want it to happen second time, you have to become stronger. Lucia thought about his conversation that, what? Is he giving me advice? Why he's telling me all this? What's with all the conversation? If he has something he wants to complain about, he should just say it. The guy looked at Lucia and said that, "You haven't changed a bit." Lucia felt that voice. I have heard it somewhere before. The guy said that, "Since you have managed to survive, why don't you take this opportunity to change something about yourself?" Lucia turned and thought that, wait, he is the guy from before. Lucia said that, "I have become someone else. I died and come back to life as another person. Isn't that reason enough to meet the Imperior? Has the Imperior ever met a woman who became someone else?" A guy asked to her that, "What are you trying to say?" Lucia thought that maybe the Imperior knows why that happened and can help. I have to meet him. I need to know if there's a way to return to my original body. The guy said that the Imperior is no sage. He doesn't know everything. I am sorry, I can't give you the answer you want. A maid came and said to Lucia, "My lady, my apologies, I don't realize you'd left." Lucia said to that maid, "It's fine. Let's go." The maid became sad and thought that, did something happen? "My lady, is there perhaps?" Lucia said that nothing happened. Lucia felt that she is so tired. The maid asked that, "I'll unbrand your hair for you." By looking at the mirror, Lucia whispered the name Lord Chamberlain. A little maid surprised by saying that and said that, "Pardon? Lord Chamberlain? Did you meet the Lord Chamberlain?" Lucia said yes. The maid said that, "He grows more handsome by the day ever in the short time since you have woken up." Lucia asked that, "Really?" The maid replied that yes. "He came to check on you. He was quite glad to see you awake. Lots of chambermaid in the palace saw him today. I suppose you did too." Lucia thought in her mind that, "I guess Lord Chamberlain is not his actual name then." The maid said that, "I hear his deep dark eyes and sharp jawline are as handsome as ever. I have just never seen anyone so handsome." Lucia said to her maid that, "Tell me everything you know about him." The maid explained about that guy named Lord Chamberlain, that he is tall with broad shoulders and a narrow torso. So he looks good in anything. He is more even attractive than he is focused on his work. His best feature is his face. His lips so red even without makeup. I can't help staring." Lucia thought in her mind that, are we talking about the same guy? I mean, he was not ugly, but he definitely wasn't all that. The maid said that, but the Imperior is more handsome, of course. Lucia said that the Imperior is recluse. They said that yes, he never shows himself. That's why the Lord Chamberlain is so busy. He acts as the Emperor's eyes and ears. People are saying that Lord Chamberlain will become the future Imperior. Lucia asked that do they really said that? They replied that yes, they also said that his black hair was inherited from the Imperior's bloodline. Lucia asked that his black hair is the special hair? Does only the Imperior family have it? Lucia said that not necessarily, but it is rare. So what's he is doing in the Rose Palace? The maid replied that he only comes whenever a lady succumbs to poison or overcomes it. He visits whenever there are problems. Though it's been a while since his last visit. Lucia said that I'd like to get some rest. The maid said that would you care for some soup before you sleep? Lucia said. That would be nice. Lucia finished her soup and thought that it's strange the Imperior never shows his face. So the Lord Chamberlain has to take care of everything for him. Lucia thought that if I can find out what happened to Lucia, maybe I can figure out how to get back in my world. Does the Lord Chamberlain know about the rumors? On the other hand, Lord Chamberlain asked about the budget and asked that so there's no way to reduce the budget? The servant replied to him, no sir. As a mere clerk, it's beyond my power. Lord Chamberlain asked that are your bear-like wife and bunny-like children doing well? The servant said, pardon. Please overlook this matter, sir. I don't want to lose my job. There's nothing I can do, short of becoming the head steward or the Rose Palace. I see, so it's because of your rank. Lord Chamberlain said that just a month of the palace's budget would be enough to run an entire estate for a year. The servant said that no estate compared to the lavishness of the Rose Palace, sir. So people who live in the houses are mere human and those who live in the palace are angels. Is that it? But the ladies are all human too, of course. All the budget goes towards food and clothes. Lord Chamberlain thought that he may seem like a fool but knows how to hold his ground. The servant said by laughing that rather than trying to lower the budget, finding His Majesty a wife maybe. Lord Chamberlain became annoyed and asked that so you can't cut it at all. And what would your wife think of that? The servant became quick for a while and replied that well, sh wouldn't kill me. Although if I make her angry she may break a few bones. Then again if I make the ladies angry. Oh dear! Lord Chamberlain said that I supposed you would be sentenced to death for upsetting one of them. The servant said that I have just feel very uncomfortable. Lord Chamberlain said that now that I think about it, it's been a while since any of them have tired to drink poison. They had probably given up seeing as how His Majesty never bats an eye when they are poisoned. Is that so? Indeed, I just feel bad for Lady Lucia. I supposed it's affected her more than we first thought. She hasn't left her chambers for some time. She hasn't been eating much either. Before she collapsed, she used to smile and talk all the time. Now, she doesn't even recognize me. They say she is suffering from memory loss due to the shock. She doesn't even remember where she was when she poisoned herself. Lord Chamberlain advised to the servant that you seem to care so much for someone who is not even your wife. The servant said that well, she is so kind and beautiful. She has an aura of mystery about her. Indeed, Lady Lucia is incredibly charming. Lord Chamberlain said that not her, you. The servant said pardon? Lord Chamberlain said that from now on, you're mine. The servant said that wait. What? So the reason you refused all those women was? Lord Chamberlain said that if you refuse, I'll have you fired. The servant requested that Lord Chamberlain, please, I was born into a lower family and succeed through my own blood, sweat and tears. I spend my days in the fields and my evenings studying by moonlight. Lord Chamberlain left that place and walking alone. Lord Chamberlain plowed the flower and thought that the thrones beneath the petals resembled the ladies of the Rose Palace. His Majesty never bats an eye when they get poisoned. Lord Chamberlain remembered Lady Lucia's words that, "I have become someone else." Lord Chamberlain thought that perhaps congratulations are in order. She managed to get the attention she was after. All the ladies who looked the poison were found collapsed atop a thorn bush. There's only one person left who can tell me the truth. All the other ladies committed suicide not long after the first time they collapsed. If she's hiding what happened to her before she took the poison while pretending to someone else, Lord Chamberlain thought that she might be able to give me some answer. Then no one else in the palace will have to die. Lord Chamberlain talked to himself that, "All right. Go ahead and do as you will." Lord Chamberlain saw a piece of clothes hanging outside from the window. Lord Chamberlain said that, "What's that? It doesn't look like a curtain." Lord Chamberlain thought that she jumped. Did she climb through the window to kill herself? Does she really think she will die if she falls from that hay? What's she thinking? BT climbing at the tree. Lord Chamberlain said that you can't die. Lucia saw him at the top of the tree beside her window and asked that, "What are you doing in that tree?" Lord Chamberlain smiled and asked her, "What are you doing here?" Lucia also smiled and said, "I couldn't sleep." By looking at the moon, Lucia thought that everything else has changed, but at least the moon is still the same. The view's quite nice from the up here. I think I will have a glass of wine, and that's what happened. Lucia smiled and said that, "Would you care for a glass?" Lord Chamberlain said that, "I intended to lower the budget, but there's another way." There's a senior servant of Lord Chamberlain who asked that, "Have you come up with a good solution then, Your Majesty?" They'll have to start earning their keep. You mean the ladies, Your Majesty? Lord Chamberlain asked that. Is there anyone else in the palace feasting off the bread of idleness? The senior servant of the Lord Chamberlain said that, "I see someone has presented His Majesty with a wonderful idea. I wonder who it was. But those ladies have never worked a day in their lives. What could they possibly do?" Lord Chamberlain said that, "I have no patience for those who leech off of others. There's someone who I'd like you to meet, Halo. He'll be of help to you." The senior servant saw another junior servant and called him, "What's your name?" "Oh, I'm Felix." "Sir." The senior servant said that, "Great, you have passed." Felix became shocked and asked that, "Pardon? Passed what?" The senior servant said that, "You greet me respectfully without knowing my station, and I appreciate your caution in asking questions. Not to mention your sunken eyes, piggish nose, and humped back are all respect. Indeed, everyone likes an ugly, survived fellow. Why, I have taken to you already." Felix became disheartened and said that, "I can't tell if that's supposed to be a compliment." The senior servant said to Felix that, "We'll be working together from now on, follow me." Felix said that, "Yes, sir." Felix said, "Pardon? The Lord Chamberlain is the Imperior?" The senior guy of Lord Chamberlain said that. "That's correct." Felix said, "You mean that grumpy Lord Chamberlain who sticks his nose in everyone's business in the Imperior? I heard the Emperor is a fierce warrior who spent years in battle." The senior servant said, "That is also correct. He is indeed a skilled warrior." Felix said that the Emperor is said to have black hair that glimmers with gold. But the Lord Chamberlain's hair is just black. He may not be able to change his hair color, but he can hide the way it shines. They say he drinks blood instead of wine and dines on human flesh. The senior servant said that, "Oh ho! Is that so? What else have you heard?" Felix said that, "I could have sworn the Lord Chamberlain's measurements are different from His Majesty's." The senior servant said that, "Have you ever compared them with yourself?" Felix said that, "No, I am just finding all of this so hard to believe." The senior servant said that, "Then don't believe it. Just do as I tell you." Felix became afraid and said that, "Is it really true?" The senior servant said that, "No, I was lying." Felix said that, "I am so confused." The senior servant asked that how many ladies are staying in the Rose Palace? Felix replied that there are originally 78, sir. The senior servant said that that's quite a lot. There shouldn't be more than a handful by now. Felix said that, but why His Majesty pretending to be the Lord Chamberlain? The senior servant said that I thought you didn't believe me. Felix said very sadly that naturally, seeing as how he killed everyone. The senior servant said that you'd best watch of your tongue. Felix said that yes sir, I beg your pardon. As the story goes, a devil returned from battle covered in blood, only to kill his own family, so that he might ascend the throne. On the other hand, the maid said to the Lady Lucia that it's quite hot out, my lady. Lucia said to that maid, let's play a game, Serena. The maid Serena asked that a game? My lady. Lucia said that yes. I called it a odd questions. I'm going to ask you some odd questions and all you have to do is answer with a straight face. If I run out a question first, I lose, but if you can't keep a straight face, you lose. If you win, you can all take the day off, but if you lose, you'll have to stay up all night. The maid Serena said. All right. Lucia said, then I'll start. What is the purpose of the Rose Palace? Serena said that the court officials insist that His Majesty must take a queen in order to establish his bloodline. They brought it up every day for 2 years, until His Majesty finally relented. At first there are only 1 or 2 ladies, but more and more began to arrive, and now they have taken over the palace. Of course, only those who meet the requirements are permitted entry. Lucia asked that why doesn't the emperor ever show himself? The emperor was originally second in line for the throne. While fighting for succession, he killed his older brother and became emperor. After that he entered the palace and was never seen again. That's quite the story. Lucia asked that is it true that the Lord Chamberlain relays the emperor's messages? The maid Serena said that yes, my lady. Lucia asked that what's he like? Serena said that I heard he was emperor's right hand in battle. Lucia asked did he get there by climbing the social ladders? Is attending a tea time must? Serena said that yes. My lady. Lucia said that it's mandatory. So it's basically like a company dinner. What if I want to stop going to tea time? Serena said that you'd have to tell the Lord Chamberlain. Suddenly Lucia heard the loud voices. Lord Chamberlain, where are you? Serena said that it's nearly impossible to find him. He rarely shows himself unless there's something special going on. Lucia asked that who's closest to him? Serena said that no one. At least not in the palace. As the emperor's eyes and ears, there are many who'd like to get close to him. But he's really hard to track down. The maid Serena said that I have an idea. Lucia said that I'll just drive some poison. Lucia asked that what if I drink poison? The maid Serena said that then he would definitely come. So he comes whenever someone's life is hanging in the balance. Lucia thought that how did I leave the palace? I want to get out and see some other flowers for a change. Serena said that well, if you get permission, you can leave whenever you like. Lucia said that I am sorry, Serena. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable with all these questions. Serena said that it's quite all right. Serena, though, in her mind that the doctor said the effects of the poison could make her unstable. There was at least a dozen ladies at tea time. They all came here for the slightest chance of becoming Empress. Lucia thought that I wonder, why did Serena get so upset? There's still so many questions I didn't get to ask her. Serena came to Lucia's room and said that my lady, you said you'd like to see different flowers. So I prepared some for you. Lucia became so glad to see the different kinds of flowers and said thank you, Serena. How'd you manage all this in such a short time? Lord Chamberlain came suddenly at that time and said that it was nice to see your servants picking flowers for you. I thought I'd help. Lucia became surprised and said, "Strange. I thought he rarely made appearance. If I am not mistaken, I have already seen him multiple times." Lord Chamberlain asked that, "May I have a seat?" Lucia said that yes, please. Lord Chamberlain asked, "How are you feeling?" Lucia replied, "I am all better, thank you." "Did someone else faint?" "There's maybe someone else who entered the body of poisoned woman." Lord Chamberlain said that no one else has fainted recently. "I came here on other business." Lord Chamberlain take out a scroll from his pocket. Lucia asked about it. "What's that?" Lord Chamberlain said to her that a scroll has been sent to all the other ladies. "But I came to deliver the message to you in person. Every living thing on earth spends a fruitful day under the sun. The seeds in the earth unfurl into sprouts, and the flowers bloom in spite of the wind. Such is the way of the world." Lucia said that I am feeling asleep. It's like listening to the principal talk. Thus, every lady in the Rose Palace must use her talents. Lucia thought that what I'll do tomorrow, what I'll do in the future, after a day spent in dressing up, drinking tea and gossip. I wonder if there's anything for me to do here. That's all. I can't believe the Emperor was thinking the same things. Lord Chamberlain said that there are going to be lots of changing in the Rose Palace. If they find out you are the one behind some of them, this will be our little secret. I will assume you have agreed. So I will relay His Majesty's message. I will take my leave then. Lord Chamberlain said that I will give you time to think. A clerk will come around for your answer. If you're unsure of what to do, I will make a decision on your behalf. On the other hand, a guy named Jace came to the Lord Chamberlain and called louder. "Your Majesty, can you hear me from up there? What are you doing here? Please take me under your wing." "Your Majesty," Lord Chamberlain said, "why would I?" Jace said that I may have been a knight of the enemy, but I saved your life. Don't I? If hadn't killed your brother, someone else would be sitting on that throne right now. Lord Chamberlain became furious and said, "Silence! Do you have any idea how many of my men you slaughtered?" Amidst the grandeur of the palace, a striking figure with blonde hair and piercing blue eyes made an unexpected entrance. His demeanor exuding a blend of confidence and desperation, with a boldness that bordered on audacity. He began to plead his case for employment within the palace walls. The Lord Chamberlain's fury was palpable as he confronted the newcomer, his voice laced with indignation. "Do you have any idea how many of my men you've slaughtered?" he demanded, his gaze unwavering, undeterred by the accusation. The man paused for a moment, his expression betraying a hint of amusement. How many was it again? Thousands? There were so many I've lost count," he replied casually, as if discussing the weather, as he launched into an explanation. The Lord Chamberlain remained steadfast, his gaze fixed firmly upon the intruder. "I was only doing my duty as a knight and protecting my king, but now the king is out to get me. I saved your life once. I'm only asking you to return the favor." The man pleaded, his words tinged with desperation. After a moment of contemplation, the Lord Chamberlain relented, his tone begrudging yet resigned. "All right, fine," he conceded, acknowledging the debt. The man's face lit up with gratitude at the unexpected acquiescence. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he exclaimed, his relief evident. With a stern yet magnanimous gesture, the Lord Chamberlain issued his decree. "I'll allow you to stay at the Rose Palace," he declared, his decision final. However, before he could finish speaking, the man's expression shifted to one of sudden realization. "Your Majesty, I know I have a pretty face, but dressing up as a woman is a big weight," he stuttered, his words trailing off as he came to a startling realization. In the midst of the unfolding drama, a servant stepped forward, his demeanor stern as he moved to intervene. With a firm grip, he began to usher the intruder towards the exit, his voice charged with a mix of authority and warning. Those awful rumors about you are still going around, you know, he remarked pointedly, his gaze unwavering as the tension in the room reached a crescendo. The Lord Chamberlain's expression hardened, his patience wearing thin. How much longer will you keep hiding like this? He demanded, his voice edged with frustration. In a sudden burst of anger, the clerk seized the intruder by the collar, his actions fueled by a combination of indignation and impatience. Come along! Now he barked, his tone leaving no room for argument. Confusion washed over the intruder as he struggled to comprehend the sudden turn of events. What? He stammered, his words faltering in the face of the servant's forceful insistence. Meanwhile, the Lord Chamberlain, taken aback by the intruder's accusations, sought clarification. Who do you think you are? He demanded, his voice tinged with disbelief. As the servant escorted the intruder out of the Lord's presence, he offered a parting admonition, his words laden with a sense of caution. You must be mindful of what you say to His Majesty, he cautioned sternly, his grip firm as he guided the intruder towards the door. Undeterred by the servant's warning, the intruder offered a disarming smile as he introduced himself. It's a pleasure to meet you, please call me Jace, he remarked casually, his tone brimming with confidence. It seems like we'll be seeing a lot of each other. With that cryptic statement hanging in the air, he disappeared from view, leaving behind a trail of intrigue and uncertainty. As Jace stood there, a picture of composure despite the circumstances, he couldn't help but let out a deep sigh. In his mind's eye, he envisioned himself adorned in a delicate pink dress, a whimsical image that elicited a wry smile from him. Seizing the opportunity to engage in banter, the clerk couldn't resist a teasing remark. Do you think I'll look good in a dress? He quipped, his tone playful yet tinged with curiosity. Unfazed by the clerk's jest, Jace replied with a hint of mischief. Perhaps if you were able to hide that physique of yours. His words were laced with humor, a subtle jab at the clerk's sturdy frame, seeking to shift the conversation away from jest. I heard only the most beautiful ladies come to live in the palace, is that true? His curiosity piqued, he awaited the clerk's response with eager anticipation. Taking a moment to collect his thoughts, the clerk let out a resigned sigh before responding. Just as the world is filled with different types of flowers, every lady in the palace is unique in her own way. If you don't find a way to restrain that curiosity of yours, you will be evicted. His words carried a weight of warning, a reminder of the strict protocols that govern life within the palace walls. Observing Jace's demeanor, the clerk couldn't help but find him to be a curious anomaly. How peculiar, he thought to himself, noting the contrast between Jace's relaxed confidence and the apprehension typically displayed by visitors to the palace. Despite his misgivings, the clerk couldn't deny that Jace's intentions appeared to be honorable enough. As Jace continued to muse aloud, the clerk couldn't suppress a lingering doubt. However, I do question his sanity, he added quietly, his voice tinged with a hint of skepticism in the midst of the palace's intricate web of intrigue. Jace remained an enigmatic figure, his true motives shrouded in uncertainty. As Halo and Jace arrived at the gaming archive, they were greeted by a young boy clad in the distinctive attire of the archive staff. Master Halo! The boy exclaimed, his voice filled with reverence and excitement. Maintaining an air of authority, Halo responded with calm assurance. At ease. I brought you a new recruit. His gaze shifted towards Jace as he added. This fellow from the terrace above. Another voice called out. Wild, we've got fresh meat. Bring a uniform. The boy named Wild turned his attention back to Jace, his expression a mixture of curiosity and amusement. Do you know how to handle a spear? He inquired, his tone brimming with anticipation. Jace hesitated for a moment before responding. A little. Before he could say more, Wild's voice echoed once again, this time with a hint of mischievous excitement. Fresh meat, you said? He exclaimed, his enthusiasm palpable as Jace donned the archive outfit, joining the ranks of the gaming archive staff. His companions couldn't help but tease him with good-natured laughter. That suits you better than a dress, wouldn't you say? They jested, their playful banter echoing through the archive. Wild, ever the instigator, couldn't resist adding to the jovial atmosphere. "You're in for one hell of a welcome party," he declared, a gleam of excitement in his eyes. With Jace now fully immersed in the world of the gaming archive, the stage was set for a new chapter of adventure and camaraderie to unfold. Meanwhile, Felix made his way to Lucia's room, a stack of documents in hand. "Hello, I'm Felix," he greeted her warmly. "Have you decided what work you'd like to do?" Lucia's expression turned thoughtful as she replied, "Not yet. I'm not sure what I can do." Felix placed the documents on the table and began to search for something, his demeanor casual yet focused. "Is that so?" he trailed off, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Let me know if an idea presents itself. In the meantime, I'll just stay here and do some work." As Felix chuckled, Lucia couldn't help but feel a pang of disappointment. "I thought he was going to give me a list of ideas," she thought to herself, her brow furrowing in confusion. Curious about the decisions made by the other ladies, Lucia ventured to ask, What did the other ladies decide on?" Felix paused in his task, his pen hovering over the documents as he considered her question. "Most have settled on making clothes or jewelry," he explained. Lucia's shoulders slumped slightly at the response. "I'm not really good at that sort of stuff," she admitted hesitantly. Undeterred, Felix continued to scribble notes, his voice reassuring. "The other ladies are in the same position. They'll probably have a servant or family member make it for them," he remarked matter-of-factly. Lucia's eyes widened in astonishment at the revelation. "What?" she exclaimed, taken aback by the notion. Glancing over at Felix, who appeared slightly confused as he scratched his head, Lucia couldn't help but wonder what other surprises lay in store as she navigated life within the palace walls. Concern etched across her face as she observed Felix's distressed state. "What's the matter with him? What's wrong?" she inquired, her voice tinged with worry. Felix wiped his brow, his breaths coming in ragged gasps as he struggled to compose himself. "Men are normally allowed in the Rose Palace. Even when we are allowed to enter, we must keep our distance from the ladies," he explained, his tone strained. Surprised by this revelation, Lucia took hold of the document that Felix had been working on and examined it with interest. "What's this?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Felix's shoulders slumped as he prepared to divulge the details of his task. "I've been tasked with recording the palace's budget and reporting it to the Lord Chamberlain each month," he began, his voice heavy with resignation. "I tried to make it as straightforward as possible, but he keeps making me rewrite it." A deep sigh escaped Felix's lips as he confessed. "Every time I look at these papers, I get so angry I could snap." His distress was palpable, and tears welled in his eyes as he struggled to contain his emotions. "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to vent my frustration," he apologized, his voice choked with emotion. Lucia offered a sympathetic smile as she gently patted Felix's arm in reassurance. "It is a bit dense," she conceded, her gaze returning to the document. "It'd be much simpler if he used charts or pictures." In that moment, Felix's eyes lit up with hope as he leaned towards Lucia, his expression eager. "Do you perhaps have a solution, Lady Lucia? Would you like me to help?" he asked, his voice tinged with anticipation. In the elegant dining room of the palace, the Lord Chamberlain sat at the table accompanied by a young boy who bore a striking resemblance to a lord in the making. Their meal consisted of succulent cuts of meat, the aroma filling the room as they dined. As the Lord Chamberlain finished his meal and dabbed at his mouth with a napkin, the boy continued to eat methodically, cutting into his meat with a fork and knife. Seizing the opportunity to impart some news, the Lord Chamberlain cleared his throat before addressing the boy. "Ahem, Count Jarnus said he will no longer be able to teach you," he informed him, his tone serious yet measured. Curious about the implications of this announcement, the boy looked up from his plate and inquired, "Do you know how many people are lining up to become his pupil?" His lips curved into a knowing smile as he awaited a response. However, before the Lord Chamberlain could reply, he was interrupted by a sudden outburst. "Elvis!" he called out sharply, his voice echoing through the room. Startled, the boy flinched involuntarily. His attention snapped back to the Lord Chamberlain with a hint of defiance in his eyes. Alvis met the Lord Chamberlain's gaze and uttered a bold statement. "Count Jarnus is a coward," he declared, his words ringing out with conviction. The Lord's curiosity piqued as he inquired further. "How so?" Alvis, undeterred by the Lord's probing, continued to voice his grievances. "He said I had to attend class on the day of Mother's memorial ceremony," he explained, his frustration evident. However, the Lord remained steadfast in his defense of Count Jarnus. "I told him that he was following my orders," he clarified, his tone firm. But Alvis wasn't convinced, his words dripping with disdain. "More like he was trying to save his own skin by pandering to you. It seems like he's still scared of dying even though he's lived for so long," he retorted, his frustration palpable as he mulled over his predicament. Alvis couldn't shake the desire to honor his mother's memory. "I might not remember what she looks like, but I still want to attend Mother's memorial service," he admitted, his voice tinged with longing. With a heavy sigh, he turned to the Lord with a plea in his eyes. "As my brother, you have to let me go," he implored, his desperation evident. But the Lord's patience waned, his anger simmering beneath the surface. "Enough. It's time for you to take rest," he commanded, his voice laced with authority, as he abruptly rose from the table and began to leave the room, leaving Alvis in stunned silence. Meanwhile, Serena entered the room, a pot of fragrant roses in hand. "The roses are in full bloom today, my lady," she announced cheerfully, a warm smile gracing her features as she approached Lucia, placing the pot of flowers on the table. Serena leaned in closer, her voice filled with kindness. "I will add some petals to your bath tonight. It will surely cheer you up," she offered gently. "Not to mention, everyone knows the fragrance captivates men," she added with a playful wink, attempting to lift Lucia's spirits with a touch of humor. As the red roses shimmered with breathtaking beauty, thought crossed Lucia's mind. Maybe that's why men use roses when proposing to a girl. The idea lingered in her thoughts, prompting Serena to offer a suggestion. "You can use roses as well as other kinds of flowers to tint the lips," Serena proposed with a warm smile, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Intrigued by the idea, Lucia's curiosity was piqued. "Really? Other flowers as well?" she inquired, her interest evident as she plucked a rose petal and delicately placed it against her lips, rubbing it in with gentle strokes. Serena couldn't help but chuckle at Lucia's adorable antics, her laughter ringing out melodiously in the room. "My lady, you have to crush it first in order to get a nice hue," she explained patiently, her amusement evident. Astonished by the revelation, Lucia's eyes widened in disbelief. "Crush it? Can I crush it with my teeth?" she asked, her voice tinged with excitement and nervousness. Before Serena could respond, the sudden appearance of Lord interrupted their conversation, causing Lucia to startle in surprise. "Huh? What? How long has he been standing there?" she wondered, her heart racing with apprehension. Observing Lucia rubbing the rose petal against her lips, Lord's gaze softened, a hint of amusement dancing in his eyes. "Does it suit your tastes?" he inquired, his voice gentle as he watched her with a curious expression. As Lucia felt annoyance prickling within her, she silently lamented. "Ugh, he's so annoying!" However, she composed herself and began to offer an explanation to Lord, hoping to clarify the situation. "I wasn't trying to eat it," she started, her voice faltering slightly under Lord's amused gaze. Serena, ever the loyal companion, chimed in with a supportive affirmation. "That is correct, she was chewing on it in the hopes of making herself more attractive," she interjected, her tone earnest. Interrupting Serena with a frustrated sigh, Lucia exclaimed, "Why would you tell him that?" Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment as she realized the extent of her predicament. To her dismay, Lord's amusement only seemed to intensify, his smile growing wider. Lucia's irritation bubbled to the surface as she retorted, "Are you done?" Her voice carried a hint of exasperation as she attempted to regain control of the situation. However, Lord's laughter persisted, much to Lucia's chagrin. Is it that funny? She demanded, her irritation palpable. It's not like I ate dirt or something. Unfazed by Lucia's protests, Lord continued to chuckle, prompting her to vent her frustration. Is your life so boring that you laugh at anything? How about a leaf blowing by? Is that funny too? She quipped sarcastically, her words laced with annoyance. Amidst Lucia's tirade, Lord offered an unexpected observation, his tone light-hearted. I think that's the most I've ever heard you speak. You have quite a way with words, he remarked, his laughter subsiding as he regarded her with newfound admiration. However, his next comment struck a nerve, causing Lucia to take action. It must have been hard for you to hold all that in, not only your words but your appetite too, considering the size of your midnight snack, he began. But before he could finish, Lucia swiftly placed her hand over his mouth, silencing him mid-sentence. As Serena departed to fetch the requested glass of rose tea, Lucia seized the opportunity to confide in Lord. Oh my, I'm rather thirsty all of a sudden. Serena, would you fetch me a glass of rose tea? She requested, her voice carrying a sense of urgency. With Serena gone and the door closed behind her, Lord couldn't help but notice Lucia's apprehension. What's the matter? You don't want her to know? He inquired, his curiosity piqued. Yeah, Lucia admitted quietly, her gaze fixed on the closed door. Lord pressed further, his brow furrowing with concern. Why not? He prodded gently. Drawing closer to Lord, Lucia leaned in and whispered in his ear, her voice barely above a murmur. I don't have much of an appetite during the day. I just pretend to eat so she doesn't worry. I eat later at night, she confessed, her words tinged with vulnerability. Lord's expression softened as he processed Lucia's revelation. So you eat food that has been sitting out all? He began, but Lucia cut him off with a firm rebuttal. It doesn't go bad that fast. The problem is the Rose Palace's policy, she explained, her frustration evident. Perplexed by her statement, Lord sought clarification. Huh? What policy? He inquired, his confusion apparent. Lucia drew closer to him, her voice barely above a whisper as she divulged the palace's strict rules. I heard that the ladies in the palace aren't allowed to eat with other men, she revealed, her tone tinged with disbelief. Surprised by this revelation, Lord shook his head in bewilderment. Is that so? I had no idea, he admitted, his expression reflecting his genuine surprise. Unaware that Lord shared her ignorance, Lucia couldn't hide her astonishment. You didn't know either? She exclaimed, her eyes widening in disbelief. Surprised by Lord's admission of ignorance, she awaited his response. Lucia couldn't help but wonder, how could he not know? Lord, however, brushed off her incredulity with a nonchalant response. Ah well, I've been so busy these days, I might have forgotten. Then us dining together will be our little secret, he suggested, his tone casual as he offered a plausible explanation. As he retreated into his thoughts, Lord's demeanor grew contemplative. I would prefer not to get close to any of the women in the palace. I am well aware that those who want to seize the throne send their daughters here. He mused inwardly, his expression unreadable. She is an empty-headed fool who spends her days playing dress-up. In the end, she's no different from the rest of them. I only came here to find out the truth behind the recent poisoning, nothing more, nothing less. I must maintain my distance, he resolved, his resolve unwavering. With a courteous nod, Lord turned away and began to take his leave, apologizing for the intrusion. My apologies for the intrusion, I should be on my way, he announced, his voice carrying a note of finality. Accepting his departure with a resigned sigh, Lucia bid him farewell. Okay, I'll go get some rest then, she replied, her weariness evident as she turned away, thoughts of fatigue creeping into her mind. However, just as she was about to retire for some much-needed rest, Lord called out to her, prompting her to turn back in surprise. My lady, he addressed her, his tone softer now. Yes, what? Lucia responded, her curiosity piqued. Without hesitation, Lord made an unexpected request, catching Lucia off guard. Eric, he stated simply, a faint smile playing at his lips. Confused by his sudden familiarity, Lucia stumbled over her words. Whose? She began, before Lord clarified. No need to call me Lord Chamberlain, call me Eric, he requested, his tone gentle yet firm. Fatigue creeping into her mind, the Lord Chamberlain, a figure of authority, took a moment to convey a personal request to Lucia. Call me Eric. Lucia's surprise was evident in her response, a hesitant, okay. As he exited her room, Eric couldn't help but muse. Was she expecting me to say something else? His thoughts drifted to introspection, wondering, is my name perhaps too old-fashioned in this modern era? In another corner of the chamber, Felix and an assistant entered discreetly, bearing a stack of important documents. His eyes widened in shock at the sight of Eric, prompting him to swiftly seek refuge behind a nearby pillar. Despite Felix's attempt to remain unnoticed, Eric's keen perception caught sight of him, prompting a subtle gesture to beckon him forth. With a nervous gulp, Felix cautiously approached, addressing Eric with a slight stumble. What's the matter, Your Maj? I mean, Lord Chamberlain? Eric, with a stack of papers in hand, glanced inquisitively at Felix's burden, inquiring with authority. What's that you have there? With a swift motion, he retrieved a document, his eyes scanning its contents intently. Felix, recognizing the gravity of the situation, attempted to explain. It's the budget report for last. However, his words were interrupted by Eric's sudden realization. The palace expenses don't show any signs of dropping. These women seem to relish the mere act of spending money, he observed. Pointing to the colorful diagrams, he inquired, what are these drawings? His colleague responded, oh, those. The circle has been divided according to each item's proportion. It's like sharing a pie. It makes complex information easier to understand. After dividing up the circle, I discovered that more money is spent on cultivating roses than on purchasing dresses and accessories. Eric then asked, was this your idea? Felix, visibly nervous, leaned in and whispered, can you keep a secret? Try not to be surprised, but it was Lady Lucia who taught me all about it after her near-death experience. It truly seems like she's become a completely different person. It's like a long-hidden part of her has finally emerged. Intrigued, Eric remarked. Because of this? Felix explained. Not just that. Struggling with these numbers usually takes me weeks. Thanks to her, this only took me a day. He began contemplating. Perhaps this could be how Lucia contributes. Then he inquired. Setting that aside, do you think my name is outdated? Felix promptly responded. No, not at all. Your name is splendid, truly remarkable. Eric interjected. Then why didn't she react? Returning his documents, he started to depart. Attempting to detain him, Felix exclaimed, excuse me. As Eric turned, he simply replied, ahem, it's nothing. In the dimly lit archive, rows of empty drums were arranged. It appeared deserted until a shirtless figure emerged, flexing his wrists and questioning. Do you expect me to remain in this form? What am I supposed to do in this state? Facing him was another shirtless individual, who explained. As planned, the moonlight charged with the energy of countless days did penetrate an uninhabited vessel. However, it seems another soul inhabited it before you. We have failed. He furrowed his brow in frustration, his fingers instinctively scratching at his neck. With an air of agitation, he exclaimed, and I'm being driven mad by this flesh. The hair you stuck on this scalp is inches away from falling off. With a resigned sigh, he continued, I can't exactly go around holding it in place. His frustration boiled over into a torrent of screams, echoing through the dimly lit chamber. I thought the time had finally come for my revenge, meanwhile cloaked in a somber black veil. Another figure stood their presence imposing yet enigmatic without turning to face him. They offered a solemn reassurance, patience, you must wait until the moon has recharged itself anew. However, his patience worth and his anger mounting with each passing moment. My heart has stopped, and my body is rotting. I cannot wait another 1,000 days. He roared, his voice echoing off the cold stone walls. In response, the enigmatic figure turned slightly, their gaze piercing through the darkness as they uttered cryptic words of hope there might be another way. Eager for a solution, he implored, "What is it?" with a measured tone. The figure revealed a glimmer of possibility. The soul that now holds the energy of the moonlight has not yet fully become one with its new body. If that soul were to stab someone else in the heart, the freshly killed body would be yours to take. His fist clenched in a mixture of rage and anticipation. He demanded confirmation. "As long as it gets stabbed in the heart, I can take any body I want." "Sounds like you have someone in mind." A sinister smirk played across his lips as he added, "Eric, my brother who killed me, I want his body." On the other hand, amidst the meticulously chosen ensemble of a pristine white shirt and a skirt adorned with intricate floral patterns, Lucia found herself immersed in contemplation. "Anyway, I can't just stay here walking on eggshells if I'm in the running for Empress. I must have a pretty high rank. That means I shouldn't have to bow to anyone besides the Emperor, who I've never even met." She mused, her thoughts weaving through the complexities of her newfound status. As her fingers subconsciously tightened into clenched fists, she reminded herself, "Okay, think you've just woken up in a new world. As a nobleman's daughter, you should be enjoying this meanwhile." Serena's gentle voice pierced through Lucia's reverie. "My lady." Turning towards her faithful attendant, Lucia discovered Serena gracefully balancing a delicate tea tray. With a hint of concern, Serena inquired, "I couldn't find you in your room. Where were you?" Lucia's realization struck her swiftly. "Right, I asked her to bring me some tea. I totally forgot." Offering a polite apology, Lucia began, "I'm sorry." No, before swiftly correcting herself, mindful of her noble station. Straightening her posture, she turned back to Serena, asserting, "I wish to go for a walk." "Let's go." Serena, ever dutiful, replied with a deferential yes, my lady. With Serena in tow, Lucia made her way to the sprawling rose garden, the vibrant blooms providing a stark contrast to her swirling thoughts. Delicately plucking a rose, Lucia brought it to her nose, inhaling deeply as she reveled in its sweet fragrance. However, the tranquility of the moment was shattered when an imposing figure clad in an archive outfit emerged, casting a formidable shadow over the serene surroundings. Startled, both Lucia and Serena froze in apprehension, their hearts pounding in unison at the unexpected intrusion in the tranquil expanse of the rose garden. Serena and Lucia were startled by the sudden appearance of a figure clad in an archive outfit. Reacting swiftly to protect Lucia, Serena cried out in alarm, "My lady!" The figure, sensing their fear, quickly raised his hands in a placating gesture, exclaiming, "Wait, I'm not here to hurt you." With an earnest tone, he added, "It's my first day as a palace guard. I'm afraid I've gotten lost. Could you point me in the direction of the east gate?" Lucia, though initially taken aback, composed herself with an air of aristocratic poise. "It's over there," she replied, gesturing confidently towards the indicated direction. However, inwardly she felt a surge of trepidation. "Wait, this is my chance to act like a real aristocrat." She realized the weight of her decision evident in the beads of sweat forming on her brow. Summoning her courage, she hesitantly continued, "Maybe the guard," intrigued by Lucia's response, questioned her further. "Don't you live here?" In a deft display of wit, Lucia countered with a question of her own. Who's to say? Emboldened by her newfound sense of agency, Lucia held her ground, her demeanor reflecting a newfound sense of confidence amidst the uncertainty of the moment. He added, "Oh, so you've come from outside?" Lucia, visibly annoyed, interjected, "I said I haven't the foggiest." An awkward silence hung between them, punctuated only by the rustling of leaves in the garden. Sensing the need to depart from the uncomfortable exchange, Lucia began to make her exit, declaring, "Let's go." Serena, ever obedient, replied with a respectful yes, my lady. As they moved away from the scene, Lucia couldn't shake the lingering doubt in her mind. Did that make me look aristocratic? She pondered, her steps adorned with the grace of her beautiful blue heels. With each stride forward, she couldn't help but question if she had projected enough strength in her response. Resolute in her determination to assert her noble status, she silently vowed, "One more word out of your mouth, and I'll have you beheaded." Lost in her thoughts, she mumbled to herself, "Would that have sounded more natural?" Suddenly, Serena's voice broke through her contemplation. "My lady!" Startled from her reverie, Lucia refocused her attention, ready to continue navigating the delicate dance of nobility. With poise and precision, she responded with a dismissive wave of her hand, accompanied by a forced smile. "Oh, don't mind me, I'm fine." Her attempt at reassurance was met with a polite nod from Serena, who replied, "That's good to hear." Internally, however, Lucia's thoughts churned with uncertainty. This sure ain't easy, she admitted to herself, her brow furrowing in contemplation. I hope that guard found his way, she mused, a tinge of concern evident in her voice, as she scanned the surroundings for any sign of the lost century. As her gaze drifted, she noticed the guard in question approaching, his steps accompanied by an unusual creaking sound. Why is he walking like that? Does he have a limp or something? Lucia pondered aloud, her curiosity piqued by the unexpected sight. Unbeknownst to her, the guard she observed was none other than Jace, whose thoughts strayed to his own assessment of Lucia's demeanor. She appears fine, but she's actually a bit daft, isn't she? Amused, a hint of superiority creeping into his tone. Perhaps she's not right in the head, he speculated, his gaze lingering on Lucia with a mixture of skepticism and amusement. With a wry smirk, he added, maybe she's just a beautiful moron. Eric sat in his office, hunched over a desk cluttered with papers, diligently scribbling away with a feather pen. His attire, a sophisticated blend of gray and blue, exuded an air of professionalism befitting his status. Across from him stood his younger brother Alvis, engaged in conversation. So, one of the ladies of the Rose Palace will become my tutor? Alvis inquired, his tone tinged with curiosity. Eric nodded solemnly in response, confirming, yes. Alvis raised a skeptical eyebrow, his expression betraying a hint of cynicism. But those women only care about impressing you, he remarked astutely. Indeed, they all came here in the hopes of marrying me, but we shouldn't forget their background. A smirk played at the corner of Alvis's lips as he continued. Background? You mean their families who would do anything to claw their way up the ranks? That is why they sent their daughters here, after all. The implication of Alvis's words struck a nerve with Eric, his temper flaring in response. With a sudden burst of frustration, he slammed his hand down on the table, the sound reverberating through the room. Alvis! Eric snapped, his voice changed with indignation. Those ladies are all of good blood and have received a fine education. Each of them is qualified to become Empress. His words carried a note of defiance, a staunch defense of the women whose capabilities he refused to undermine. They are more than qualified to be your tutor, Eric asserted firmly, his tone unwavering. However, Alvis, ever the provocateur, interjected with a pointed question. Even the one who drank poison and went a bit crazy? I heard her father's a greedy baron. Surprised by the revelation, Eric countered. Who told you that? Alvis shrugged nonchalantly, replying, It's common knowledge in the palace. Eric took a deep breath, attempting to quell the rising frustration within him. That's enough. You may leave, he instructed, his voice clipped with irritation. Unfazed, Alvis persisted. You didn't answer my question. Lingering in the room despite Eric's dismissal. With a hint of exasperation, Eric retorted. Are you really going to make me say it? Alvis recoiled slightly at the rebuke before conceding. I'll be waiting, and finally exiting the room. As he departed, Alvis couldn't help but ponder. What could I possibly have to learn from those women? Besides, he's the one who said they were all a bunch of greedy cows in the first place. His thoughts swirled with skepticism as he contemplated the true intentions behind Eric's decision. He stepped forward, his voice laced with skepticism. If they're all qualified to become Empress, why does he never meet any of them? Lost in his own thoughts, he speculated. He's trying to get leverage on the nobility by holding their daughters hostage. A mischievous grin spread across his face as a plan formed in his mind. My new teacher's name is Lucia. I'm gonna get her kicked out of the palace, he declared triumphantly. And if there's another teacher after that, I'll get her kicked out too. He'll eventually learn to stop assigning me teachers. Lost in his scheming, he found himself standing in the midst of a bustling hallway, his voice ringing out with determination. If someone wants to teach me, I'll just teach them a lesson instead. His outburst drew the attention of nearby servants, who cast curious glances in his direction as he continued on his way. His mind consumed by plots and schemes, he was interrupted by the voice of a palace guard. Prince Alvis! Halo called out, prompting Elvis to turn back with a disarming smile. Halo! He greeted the guard warmly. Halo, ever dutiful, reminded him, you cannot enter the Rose Palace without His Majesty's permission. Elvis waved off the concern with a casual flick of his hand. Don't worry, it's not like I'm here to steal one of the ladies. I'm just going for a look. Don't follow me, he reassured, his smile masking his true intentions as he continued on his way, ignoring Halo's pleas. Prince Alvis continued on his determined path towards the Rose Palace. Inside, he found Lucia and Serena awaiting him, their presence an unexpected interruption to his plans. With a nonchalant flourish, he twisted his arms and remarked, I guess you're qualified to be here. You're as pretty as a doll. Lucia, taken aback by the sudden intrusion and the peculiar compliment, furrowed her brow in confusion, she uttered, unable to comprehend Alvis's intentions. Internally, Lucia wrestled with conflicting emotions. Am I supposed to thank him? No, he's being rude. I should lecture him, she reasoned, her thoughts racing. Undeterred by Lucia's bewilderment, Alvis pointed his finger accusingly, doubling down on his brash assertion. Still, you're not good enough to be my teacher, he declared with a hint of superiority. Lucia's astonishment was palpable as she processed Alvis's audacious statement, her mind racing to formulate a response to his blatant provocation. When Elvis brazenly remarked to Luciano that she wasn't a competent teacher, her initial reaction was one of pure astonishment, caught off guard by his audacity. She found herself plunged into a whirlwind of conjecture. Judging by the way he's acting, she mused internally, he must hail from nobility. No, perhaps even higher than that. Could he be the Emperor's son? But then why isn't he even married? Am I expected to impart knowledge to this young man? Midway through her mental gymnastics, Alvis's interruption shattered her reverie. Look here, doll, he declared, his tone dripping with disdain. I have nothing to learn from someone who attempted to poison herself. I had intended to reduce you to tears, but I deemed it fitting to offer a forewarning. You're welcome. The bombshell of his accusation left Lucia reeling in disbelief. The shock of his words reverberated through her, leaving her momentarily speechless as she struggled to process the audacity of his accusations. He added with a tone of finality, his words slicing through the tension like a knife. There's only one thing you need to do. With an accusatory finger pointed directly at her, his voice crescendoed into a deafening scream. Say you can't be my teacher. You'd better. Lucia, feeling a mixture of resignation and relief, acquiesced, her voice tinged with a hint of surrender. All right, I think that's for the best. Alvis, taken aback by her unexpected compliance, found himself momentarily speechless, his mouth agape in disbelief. What? He managed to stammer out, his confidence momentarily shaken by her unexpected concession. Undeterred, Lucia continued to unravel her thoughts, her words pouring forth in a torrent of uncertainty and confusion. I didn't even know I was supposed to teach anyone, she confessed, her brow furrowed in bewilderment. Who do I need to speak with? I've never seen the Emperor, and the Lord Chamberlain is as stealthy as a ninja. A desperate note crept into her voice as she added, Have you seen him? I heard the sound of him rushing past. Alvis couldn't help but burst into laughter at Lucia's bewildered inquiries, his amusement ringing out through the room like peals of mocking thunder. As the realization dawned upon her, Lucia's eyes sparkled with newfound clarity, her earlier confusion giving way to a steely resolve. Well, she retorted with a wry smile, her words laced with a hint of defiance. He's like the wind. Who can say where the wind is? I don't feel comfortable teaching anyone. Can you find whoever's in charge and tell them I can't? Lucia implored, her voice tinged with desperation. Elvis, taken aback by her sudden request, stammered out a hesitant response. Oh, okay. Meanwhile, in another part of the palace, Serena and Lucia found themselves engaged in a light-hearted game in one of the opulent rooms. Here I go, remember that game I taught you before? Serena prompted with a mischievous grin. I'll start, okay? Lucia agreed, her competitive spirit rising to the challenge. With playful banter, they counted. 29, 30, 31, got ya! Serena exclaimed triumphantly. But Lucia wasn't about to let her off easy. You lose, penalty time. Will it be fruits or vegetables today? She teased, gesturing towards the array of fresh produce laid out on the table. Serena, opting for fruit, reached for a piece of apple and took a bite. However, as Lucia observed her friend's actions, a pang of concern washed over her. Serena is wasting away from looking after me all day. The same goes for all the other servants, she thought solemnly. Turning to Serena, she voiced her worries. She won't eat even if I offer her food, so I basically have to force her. The weight of responsibility for her friend's well-being weighed heavily on Lucia's shoulders as she grappled with the complexities of their intertwined lives within the palace walls. Alvis strode into the room with an air of authority, addressing Serena with a respectful tone. Your Highness, what are you doing? Serena, caught off guard by his sudden appearance, replied with a hint of sheepishness. I was playing a game with Lady Lucia. But Lucia couldn't help but interject with, I thought more like having snack time. Undeterred by Serena's response, Elvis's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as he proposed. I'd like to try. Clenching his hand with determination, he declared. Whoever says 31 loses, right? Serena attempted to protest, but Alvis pressed on eagerly. What, you don't want to play with me? Seizing the opportunity to inject a bit of mischief into the game, Lucia chimed in. The loser has to take a penalty. Are you sure you can handle it? Undaunted by the challenge, Alvis nodded resolutely. So, she was eating that apple because she lost, he deduced, turning to Serena for confirmation. Serena nodded in agreement, and Alvis's eyes lit up with a mischievous glint. Then, if I lose, he proclaimed with gusto, I'll have the chef cook up a grand meal for every servant in the palace. Outside the Rose Palace, Halo and the other servants grew increasingly restless as they awaited Alvis's return. Pacing back and forth, they wondered, what is taking His Highness so long? Just then, Eric arrived on the scene. His curiosity piqued as he inquired, What are you all doing here? Halo scrambled to compose himself before addressing Eric, his voice trembling with deference. Oh, your Maj, I mean Lord Chamberlain. You see. Before he could explain further, Alvis's commanding voice rang out, calling for Halo's attention. Halo! He bellowed. Startled, Halo responded immediately. Yes, Your Highness. Eric, curious about the commotion, peered into the Rose Palace, only to have the door slammed shut in his face by Halo, who exclaimed, For goodness sake! How are we to prepare so much food on such short notice? With a heavy sigh, he lamented. And for the servants, no less. Perplexed by Halo's agitation, Eric inquired, What's wrong with him? Undeterred by the chaos outside, Eric decided to enter the Rose Palace. Inside, Serena spotted him and inquired, Lord Chamberlain, are you here to see Lady Lucia? Eric shook his head, replying, No, I came for Prince Alvis. Serena, hoping to buy some time, implored him to wait for a moment, saying, One moment, please. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Elvis and Lucia were engaged in their intense game. Elvis slammed his hand on the table in frustration, questioning aloud, Why? Why do I keep losing? As Lucia chuckled at his vexation, she sipped her drink and quipped, I'm the master of drinking, J.A.Hem. Fed up with his losing streak, Elvis declared, Arg! I'm sick of this game. Amused by his frustration, Lucia affectionately placed her hand on his head and chuckled. Ha ha, how cute! With a mischievous glint in her eye, she offered, Want me to teach you how to win, Elvis? His eyes bright with anticipation, Elvis eagerly exclaimed, Yes, tell me! Just then, Eric arrived on the scene, his authoritative presence commanding attention. Prince Alvis! He called out, his voice resonating with authority. Alvis turned to see the Lord Chamberlain, his expression shifting to one of astonishment. Lord Chamberlain! he acknowledged with a tone of finality. Eric ordered, "It's time for you to go back now." But Alvis, determined to continue the game, protested. "But I still haven't won yet. She was just about to teach me how." Eric, unmoved by Alvis's plea, added firmly, "The sun has already set." Elvis, feeling defeated, held his head in frustration, letting out a frustrated scream. "Arg! Just let her tell me first." Sensing the tension in the air, Lucia intervened, addressing Eric respectfully. "Lord Chamberlain." Eric turned his attention to Lucia, responding with a curt, "Yes, my lady." Seizing the opportunity to involve Eric in the game, Lucia proposed, "Would you like to try, Eric?" After a moment's consideration, Eric conceded, All right." Turning to Elvis with a playful grin, Lucia teased, "Hey, all this time, you just wanted to play too." Serena, ever the mediator, interrupted with a clear explanation of the rules. "The rules are simple, my lord," she began. "You take turns counting, and you can say up to 3 numbers at a time. 31, whoever says 31 loses. It's called Baskin-Robbins 31. Alvis, eager to understand the origins of the game, interjected. Baskin what? What does that mean, Lucia? Still chuckling at the absurdity of the name, Lucia replied with a shake of her head. I have no idea. Meanwhile, she began to strategize silently, pondering her next move. If I don't want to say 31, all I have to do is say 30. She thought to herself. The first time I go, I count to 2, then I just have to make sure my opponent, and I count 4 numbers per turn. With a sly smirk, she realized. If the other person doesn't know the trick, then I can win, regardless of who starts. Eric, seeking to keep the game moving, turned to Lucia and inquired, Would you like to go first? Without hesitation, Lucia accepted the challenge. Sure, she replied confidently. 1, she began, and as Eric closed his eyes to count, she continued. 2, 27, 28, 29, 30. To her shock, Eric's counting strategy had caught her off guard. Huh! I can't believe I lost! She exclaimed, her disbelief evident. Eric, ever the gracious victor, added, Come to think of it, we didn't decide on the punishment. So what will it be? Caught off guard by her defeat, Lucia hesitated before responding. I think I need some time to think about it. Eric, respecting her decision, agreed. All right then. His Highness and I will take our leave. As Eric began to leave, Lucia couldn't help but voice her bewilderment. I never lose. What just happened? Is he just good at everything? She mused aloud, her competitive spirit momentarily dampened by her unexpected defeat. Eric gracefully escorted Alvis out of the Rose Palace, their footsteps echoing in the opulent hallway adorned with intricate tapestries and gilded fixtures. As they walked, Eric turned to Alvis with a thoughtful expression. Did you feel it? He inquired, his voice carrying a hint of intrigue. Alvis glanced at him quizzically. Feel what? He asked, his brow furrowed in confusion. Just because she's proficient at a few games, Eric explained, noticing Alvis's misunderstanding and wanting to clarify his point. That doesn't necessarily mean she possesses the ability to teach. Realization dawned on Alvis's face as he processed Eric's words. That's not what I meant, Eric clarified, his tone shifting to one of pride. Did you feel the power of the Emperor effortlessly triumphing while you sulked like a child? His words resonated with confidence, emphasizing the significance of their recent experience. Alvis's expression brightened, a sense of validation washing over him at Eric's acknowledgement. The Rose Palace, with its walls enveloped in vibrant red roses, exuded an air of regal splendor. At the center of the hallway, a meticulously arranged table awaited them, adorned with an assortment of delicacies. The aroma of freshly brewed tea mingled with the sweet scent of cookies and cakes, tantalizing their senses and adding to the allure of the surroundings. Seated gracefully on a plush sofa, a blonde girl adorned in a flowing blue dress delicately cradled her teacup, her gaze thoughtful as she engaged in conversation with her friend across from her. Draped in a vibrant red dress, her companion was attentive to the blonde's musings. "Why would the Emperor order such a thing?" the blonde queried, her tone a mixture of confusion and frustration. "Isn't it enough that we spend every day looking good for him? Now we have to work too?" Her friend, Swan, exuded an air of serenity as she listened, her expression calm and composed. "I think I'll cook," she replied, her voice soft but resolute. "Cook?" the blonde echoed, her eyebrows shooting up in surprise as she scrutinized Swan's delicate hands. Doubts flickered across her mind. With those hands? She looks like she's never even washed a dish before, she thought, taking note of Swan's hands, which appeared as soft and smooth as silk. The blonde couldn't help but speculate. Is she planning to make her servant do this? The possibility seemed incredulous, yet the evidence before her eyes left her momentarily speechless. Observing Swan with a calculating gaze, the blonde, her smirk betraying a hint of mischief, mused internally. Like all the other ladies, yet a subtle shift in her demeanor hinted at a deeper contemplation. Still, keeping her close might not be so bad, just in case I don't end up as Empress, she reasoned silently. Turning her attention back to Swan, she inquired, "Did His Majesty choose that for you?" Swan's response was firm and unwavering. "No, I decided myself." Interjecting hastily, the blonde voiced her concern. "But if you cook too much, you'll ruin your beautiful hands." Swan's gentle rebuttal was filled with determination. "I want to cook a nice meal for His Majesty all by myself." The blonde's eyes widened in realization, a sudden epiphany striking her. "Oh, I didn't even consider that. If I had, I would have chosen cooking too," she confessed, her surprise palpable. Swan, taken aback by the admission, choked on her words as she questioned, "Wouldn't you just make your servant do it? I know she does your sewing for you." The blonde, caught off guard by the blunt observation, found herself at a loss for words, her shock evident in her silence. Meanwhile, within the confines of her palace, Lucia, enveloped in regal elegance, fervently searched for a particular letter. Its azure hue stood out amidst the sea of parchment. With careful anticipation, she unsealed the missive, absorbing its contents with growing apprehension. "You have been appointed as Prince Alvis's teacher. You are to give him 1 lesson per week." Beside her, Serena, ever the stalwart companion, stood poised and attentive. Lucia turned to Serena, her expression fraught with uncertainty. "Any chance of this getting changed?" she implored, her voice tinged with desperation. Serena's response was measured and somber. "His Majesty rarely revokes his commands unless the one who received the order dies or commits a grave sin," she conveyed with a solemn tone, her words resonating with finality. Caught in the throes of indecision, Lucia found herself ensnared in a web of conflicting emotions. Teach or kill, 2 divergent paths stretched before her, each laden with its own weighty implications. As she grappled with the magnitude of her dilemma, a single thought crystallized in her mind. The answer is clear. In the midst of their deliberations, Prince Alvis made his grand entrance, his presence commanding attention. Serena, ever astute, addressed him with a query about his arrival. Prince Alvis, with a mischievous glint in his eye, extended a hand towards both women, his laughter ringing out. "Ha ha, the game! You were trying to make me curious, weren't you?" he exclaimed, his jovial demeanor unmistakable. Serena's response was sharp, cutting through the playful banter with precision. "You were trying to prove that you're different from all the other ladies here who just humor me. Don't bother denying it," she asserted, her tone laced with a hint of challenge. Lucia, taken aback by Alvis's sudden appearance, stood frozen in shock, her mind reeling with a whirlwind of emotions. Yet before she could gather her thoughts, Alvis interjected with a casual remark, his hand absent-mindedly scratching his head. "Oh, and did you know? If you lay a hand on a member of the imperial family without permission, you'll be beheaded," he quipped, his words carrying a weighty implication. A bead of sweat formed on Lucia's brow as she realized her inadvertent transgression. In a moment of impulse, she reached out, her fingers brushing against Alvis's head as she offered a strained smile. "Oh, right," she murmured, her regret immediate and palpable. As Alvis demanded a repeat of the action, Lucia's heart sank, her mind racing with the repercussions of her actions. "Crap," she muttered under her breath, her realization dawning too late to salvage the situation. Lucia's confusion was palpable as she voiced her query. "Excuse me?" Alvis, ever the enigmatic figure, bowed his head before her, prompting Lucia to extend her hand tentatively, her thoughts racing with uncertainty. "Is this really okay?" she wondered silently as her palm made contact with his head, her touch hesitant yet yielding. Alvis, seemingly satisfied, turned away with a cryptic remark. I knew it." Lucia, caught off guard by his cryptic response, pressed for clarification. "Knew what?" With a dismissive wave, Alvis began to make his departure, his demeanor veiled in a shroud of mystery. "Nothing. I have to go," he muttered tersely before abruptly exiting the palace, the door slamming shut behind him. Yet in a moment of unexpected sincerity, he paused and turned back, his laughter echoing through the halls as he called out. "Hey, I'll behave the next time we meet. Bye, teacher." As Lucia watched him depart, a heavy sigh escaped her lips, her thoughts swirling with uncertainty. "Teacher," she repeated softly, her mind grappling with the weight of her newfound responsibility. "What am I supposed to teach him? I've only barely adjusted to this place. It's lucky enough that I can somehow speak the language." Turning to her trusted companion Serena, Lucia sought solace in the comfort of literature. "Serena, I'd like something to read. Do you have a book by any chance?" she requested, her voice tinged with a hint of longing for distraction amidst the chaos of her thoughts. Serena's admission brought a tinge of disappointment to Lucia's hopes for literary escape. "Oh, I'm afraid books are a bit beyond my capabilities," she confessed with a sheepish smile. "However, there is a library in the palace. Each floor requires a special pass," she continued, offering a glimmer of hope. "Servants aren't allowed in the library, so I don't know much more than that. I've yet to see the other ladies go in there." As they deliberated, a timely interruption broke their conversation. A lady servant entered, her announcement cutting through the air with precision. "My lady, the Lord Chamberlain is here to see you," she relayed. Lucia's mind raced with opportunity as Eric, the Lord Chamberlain, entered the palace. Seizing the moment, she approached him with urgency. "Lord Chamberlain, I need a pass," she implored, her tone urgent yet composed. Eric, ever the epitome of grace, inquired. "A pass for what?" Lucia wasted no time in clarifying her request. "I'd like to go to the library," she explained earnestly. Without hesitation, Eric provided her with the necessary pass, his demeanor accommodating and poised. "Certainly. One moment, please. This will give you access to the first 3 floors," he informed her, his voice steady and reassuring. "The 4th and 5th floors are reserved for the imperial family and nobles who have acquired special permission," he added, his words carrying a note of distinction. "It's not far from the palace. A guard can escort you," Eric suggested, his tone accommodating as he outlined the logistics. Lucia sought clarification. "So I'm allowed to leave the palace?" Eric affirmed with a nod. "Yes, if you're just going to the library. You have my permission." Grateful for the opportunity, Lucia expressed her gratitude. "Thank you." As they settled at the tea table, their conversation took a more serious turn. "Have you thought of a penalty yet?" Eric inquired, his gaze thoughtful. Lucia pondered for a moment before responding. "Oh, unlike Prince Alvis, I don't really have anything to offer." Before she could finish, Eric interjected with a surprising revelation. "Actually, there was something I wanted to ask of you," he confessed, leaning in closer. His cryptic words caught Lucia off guard, prompting her to respond in astonishment. "Huh!" she exclaimed, her mind racing with wild conjectures. "Asterisk inside my clothes? Does he want me to get naked?" The nerve of him, She thought incredulously. Summoning her resolve, Lucia rebuffed his audacious request with a hint of indignation. That's a bit rude, don't you think? Do I look that easy to you? She retorted, her words laced with disdain. Eric quickly dispelled Lucia's misinterpretation with a dismissive wave of his hands. No, that's not what I meant, he clarified, his tone earnest. Leaning in closer, he elaborated. I meant show me the truth inside your heart. Lucia, relieved by his clarification, took a moment to collect herself before responding. Oh, what truth? She echoed, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Eric's gaze bore into her, his expression probing as he posed a question that cut to the core of her identity. Do you really not remember anything from before you took the poison? Have you really become someone else? He inquired, his words laden with concern. Lucia's mind raced with conflicting emotions as she grappled with the weight of Eric's inquiry. Should she reveal her innermost thoughts? The uncertainty of Eric's intentions clouded her judgment, leaving her hesitant to divulge too much. In a gesture of defiance, Lucia responded with a brusque dismissal. No, I really don't remember. I need some time to get my thoughts in order, she asserted, her tone sharp with frustration. Eric, resigned to her reluctance, rose from his seat with a sigh. All right, he conceded, his demeanor sullen as he made his exit. As Lucia watched him depart, a sense of unease settled over her, the lingering questions swirling in her mind like a tempestuous storm. In the tranquility of the Rose Palace, Lucia reclined on the sofa, her mind set on her upcoming excursion to the library. Serena, I'm going to the library. Please call a guard to escort me, she instructed, her tone firm yet composed. Serena, ever dutiful, acknowledged her request with a deferential nod. Yes, my lady, she affirmed as she summoned a guard to attend to Lucia's needs. As the door swung open, a figure emerged bearing a knight's helmet in hand. My name is Jace, he announced, his voice resonant with familiarity. With a graceful bow, he greeted Lucia once more. It's a pleasure to meet you again. Lucia's mind raced as she registered the familiarity of his voice. That voice, is he the man from before? She wondered silently, her curiosity piqued. Seizing the opportunity to confirm her suspicions, she inquired. Did you find your way to the East Gate? Jace's response was affirmative, albeit tinged with a hint of self-deprecation. Yes, after a bit of wandering, he admitted with a sheepish grin. However, Lucia's attention was drawn to a new detail as she scrutinized his face. What happened to your face? She questioned, her concern evident in her voice. Jace's smile remained affable as he offered an explanation. I was in such a hurry to get here that I tripped. His laughter filled the air as he continued. A passing tree tried to catch me, and I scratched my face on one of its branches. Lucia couldn't help but find his explanation peculiar. A passing tree? That's a weird way of putting it, she thought. But more importantly, why is he carrying that helmet around if he's not going to use it? She pondered silently, her brow furrowing with suspicion. Unaware of Lucia's internal musings, Jace turned his attention away, only to be met with a stern reprimand from Serena. Do not show such discourtesy to Lady Lucia, she warned sharply, her tone conveying no room for argument. Caught off guard by Serena's admonishment, Jace flinched, his expression sheepish as he sought to defend himself. What do you mean? I was only, he began, but Serena cut him off with a firm interjection. Don't you dare make her feel uncomfortable. Do you understand? She demanded, her gaze unwavering. Lucia, albeit surprised by the sudden exchange, remained a silent observer, her thoughts swirling with questions and uncertainties. Resigned to his fate, Jace acquiesced with a nod, his demeanor chastened. I'll wait for you here, my lady, he declared, his voice subdued as he stood guard outside the library, his helmet held at his side, a silent sentinel in his duty to Lucia. Lucia assured Jace with a nod. I don't know how long I'll be. Go on ahead and I'll call for you when I'm done. With that, she crossed the threshold of the library, the soft clanking of her pink heels echoing in the hallowed halls. As she took in the sight of shelves laden with books, Lucia couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. "Wow, that's a lot of books," she remarked, her astonishment evident in her voice. Reflecting on her priorities, she chastised herself inwardly. Learning about this place should have been my priority. I've been slacking off this whole time. I need to find out as much as I can about this world. Meanwhile, back at the Rose Palace, a lady servant's concern for Lucia's well-being was palpable. "Is Lady Lucia still in the library?" she inquired anxiously, her worry etched across her features. Serena, ever the beacon of reassurance, provided an update. "It's been 3 whole days now. I hope she's eating. I told the librarian to check in on her." Moved by Lucia's plight, the lady servant expressed her concern. "It must be cold at night." Serena nodded in agreement, her resolve unwavering. "I sent a warm blanket as well," she assured, her voice imbued with compassion for her mistress's well-being. A solemn knock interrupted the tranquility of the Rose Palace, heralding the arrival of the Lord Chamberlain. "I'm here to see Lady Lucia," he announced, concern etched in his features. Serena's response conveyed the gravity of the situation. "She hasn't come out of the library for 3 days now." Eric's brows furrowed with worry as he absorbed this revelation. "Ever since I gave her the pass," he mused aloud, his voice tinged with apprehension. The lady servant, sharing in their concern, interjected with a plea for assistance. "We can't go check on her since we're not allowed inside. Could you perhaps find out how she's doing for us?" Eric's initial response fell short of reassurance as he turned away, his words tinged with resignation. "Well, she'll come out eventually," he remarked callously. Appalled by his indifference, the lady servant couldn't contain her indignation. "What a mean thing to say," she rebuked, her voice laced with reproach. With a sigh, Eric stepped forward, his demeanor softened by the gravity of the situation. Meanwhile, within the confines of the library, Lucia navigated the dimly lit aisles with a candle in hand. Her determination undeterred, she sifted through the shelves, her thoughts a whirlwind of contemplation. Considering the fact that I've been reincarnated into another person's body, it wouldn't even surprise me if I learned the people of this world worship magical unicorns, she mused wryly to herself. Despite the uncertainty that surrounded her, Lucia resolved to stay positive, her spirit unyielding in the face of adversity. As Lucia settled into her makeshift reading nook amidst the dimly lit expanse of the library, a wry smile tugged at her lips. "This is still better than what happened to Alice in Wonderland," she remarked to herself, her voice filled with a touch of amusement. Seating herself comfortably, she adjusted the chair with a gentle push, her mind abuzz with the myriad possibilities of her new reality. I just have to keep an open mind. Even if I run into a talking caterpillar, I have to take it in stride. I mean, if that kind of thing is normal here, she reasoned aloud, her tone tinged with a hint of skepticism. Perusing the shelves, Lucia's eyes fell upon a book titled Registry of Titles, Angels, Demons, Wizards. Intrigued, she reached for it, her fingers tracing the embossed letters on the cover. "Is this a fantasy novel?" she mused, her curiosity piqued. Opening the book, she flipped through its pages, absorbing the intricate details of the world it described. As she delved deeper, her brow furrowed with each revelation. "And what's with all the limitations for each title?" she pondered, her thoughts racing. "The wife shares in the power of her husband. Only the emperor's sons may inherit the throne," she read aloud, her voice trailing off in contemplation. A dawning realization swept over her as she connected the dots. "I guess that's why everyone is scrambling to marry the emperor," she surmised, her gaze lingering on the text before her. Her attention captured by the words on the page, Lucia continued to read, her mind racing with the implications of the knowledge she sought. "Demons can enter the human world by making a deal, and only oracles can stop them. But there are some demons that oracles cannot stop," she read, her voice trailing off as a shiver ran down her spine. As Lucia immersed herself in the labyrinth of knowledge within the library, a sudden pang of pain pierced through her thoughts, causing her to cry out in distress. Ugh, my head hurts. Wow, it's not like I'll ever run into a demon. Before she could dwell further on her discomfort, a disembodied voice echoed through the aisles, its words cryptic yet intriguing. A flower only needs to look beautiful. Startled by the unexpected interruption, Lucia turned to face the source of the sound, only to find a figure standing before her, curiosity evident in their gaze. What are you doing in the library? They inquired, their tone gentle yet probing. Drawing upon her newfound resolve, Lucia responded with a metaphorical flourish. Flowers don't bloom easily. They need the right amount of sunlight, water, and heat. With a determined air, she rose from her seat, her resolve unwavering. I have to do my best at the task I was assigned. That way, no one will think they've wasted water on me, she declared, her voice tinged with determination. Her words resonated with the stranger, who nodded in agreement. I see, you are correct. Flowers don't bloom easily, they acknowledged, their voice echoing with quiet understanding. As the encounter drew to a close, Lucia found herself alone once more, her mind reeling with unanswered questions. Is he gone? That startled me. Who was that? She wondered silently, her thoughts swirling in confusion. I need to get some air, she resolved, her fingers fumbling as she attempted to return the book to its rightful place on the shelf. Yet in her haste, disaster struck, and a cascade of books came tumbling down around her, leaving her bewildered and flustered. Why is it? She trailed off, her gaze falling upon the chaotic scene before her. As Lucia struggled to maintain her balance amidst the falling books, a sense of panic threatened to overwhelm her. Just as a book teetered precariously above her, poised to collide with her head, a strong hand reached out, catching it midair. Startled by the sudden intervention, Lucia looked up to find Eric standing before her, his presence both reassuring and enigmatic. As she attempted to adjust the position of the book, Lucia felt Eric's grip tighten around her, his voice a whisper in her ear. Could you let go? She asked tentatively, her curiosity piqued. Eric's response was cryptic, his words laden with hidden meaning. If I let go and you see my face, that'll be the end of you, he murmured, his tone grave. Intrigued yet wary, Lucia pressed for answers. Who are you? She demanded, her voice trembling slightly with uncertainty. Do you really wish to know? Eric countered, his voice a mere whisper in the stillness of the library. I'm the only one you need, the only one who can help you bloom, he added, his words tinged with a sense of urgency. Caught off guard by his declaration, Lucia's mind raced with possibilities. No way, is this the Emperor? Is this some kind of test? She wondered silently, her heart pounding in her chest. Seeking clarification, she posed the question that cut to the heart of her predicament. If I see your face, will I be able to stay in the palace? She inquired, her voice tinged with apprehension. Eric's response was cryptic yet affirmative. You're quick to catch on, he remarked, his hands slipping from her waist as he withdrew, his form disappearing into the shadows. Left alone once more, Lucia's senses were heightened, her ears attuned to the slightest sound. I heard a noise this way, she exclaimed, her gaze darting around the dimly lit library. But no one was to be found. As a concerned servant approached her, inquiring about her well-being, Lucia's mind raced with unanswered questions. Where did he go? She wondered, her thoughts consumed by the enigma that was Eric. With a sense of urgency driving him, Eric embarked on his search for Lucia, who had been ensconced in the library for 3 days without respite. Serena's update had only fueled his concern, leaving him determined to locate her and ensure her well-being. Silently pushing open the door to the library, Eric entered, his gaze scanning the dimly lit expanse in search of the elusive Lady Lucia. As he traversed the labyrinthine aisles, his footsteps echoing softly against the polished floors, Eric's thoughts were consumed by the enigmatic woman he sought. There she is, he murmured to himself as he caught sight of her form amidst the towering shelves, her presence casting an aura of mystery that both intrigued and perplexed him. Drawing closer, Eric couldn't help but marvel at Lucia's unwavering dedication to her task, even in the face of uncertainty and solitude. She has an aura of mystery about her, he thought, his admiration mingling with a twinge of concern. Taking a moment to collect himself, Eric cleared his throat, his voice breaking the silence of the library. I must be out of my mind, he muttered under his breath, his words a quiet admission of his own vulnerability in the face of the unknown. Meanwhile, in the hallowed halls of the palace, two figures clad in uniform stepped forward, their demeanor respectful yet resolute. Your Majesty, they addressed with deference, their voices echoing in the stillness of the corridor, a silent reminder of the weight of their duty. Seated upon his imperial throne, Eric regarded the two figures before him with a mixture of curiosity and concern. What brings you here, Sir Romeo? He inquired, his voice measured yet tinged with urgency. Romeo, his fiery red hair a stark contrast against the solemn expression on his face, responded with a somber tone. An ogre has attacked the castle gates, he revealed, his words hanging heavily in the air. Eric's surprise was palpable as he absorbed this unexpected news. Really? I thought there weren't any monster dwellings nearby, he remarked, his brow furrowing with concern. Romeo nodded solemnly, his gaze fixed upon the floor as he continued. We're currently investigating. Even as it was dying, it managed to get one leg inside the gate. Turning his attention to the other figure in the room, Eric's tone turned stern as he addressed Sir Walter. So you let the monster into the palace? You've been neglecting your duties, Sir Walter, he admonished, his voice betraying his disappointment. Sir Walter, his demeanor contrite, bowed his head in acknowledgement of his failure. My apologies, Your Majesty, he murmured, his voice tinged with regret. Offering an explanation for the creature's inexplicable behavior, Sir Walter continued. A monster's ability to reason declines at night as its instincts take over, but this happened in broad daylight. What was it thinking? Eric pondered this revelation, tapping his fingers thoughtfully on the arm of his chair. It doesn't appear to have been looking for food, it seems to have been headed for the Rose Palace, he observed, his mind already racing with plans to address this newfound threat to his kingdom. As Lucia emerged from the confines of the library, she was met by the concerned gaze of Serena, who wasted no time in relaying the distressing news. My lady, Serena addressed her with urgency, her tone conveying the gravity of the situation. Startled by Serena's sudden appearance, Lucia's brow furrowed with concern as she posed the question. Serena, have you been waiting here for me this whole time? She inquired, her voice tinged with disbelief. Serena shook her head in response, her expression grim. No, I only just arrived, she explained hastily, her focus fixed on the task at hand. With a sense of foreboding settling over her, Lucia listened intently as Serena continued to recount the events that had unfolded at the Rose Palace. There's trouble at the Rose Palace. An ogre nearly got inside the gates, Serena revealed, her words punctuated by a note of urgency. Lucia's eyes widened in shock at the revelation. An ogre? She echoed, her mind racing to comprehend the magnitude of the threat. Serena nodded gravely, her voice tinged with concern. Fortunately, the soldiers were able to stop it, but part of the castle wall collapsed, she added, her words painting a vivid picture of the chaos that had ensued. Lucia's confusion was evident as she struggled to grasp the concept of such a formidable adversary. You mean that massive brick wall? And what's an ogre? She inquired, her voice tinged with uncertainty. With patience, Serena proceeded to enlighten her mistress about the nature of ogres, her words carrying the weight of experience. Ogres are twice the size of normal men. They're strong enough to uproot trees, she explained, her voice tinged with solemnity as she imparted her knowledge of the formidable creatures that now threatened their realm. Observing the heightened state of security evident throughout the palace grounds, Lucia couldn't help but marvel at the sight of additional soldiers. Wow, I do see a lot more soldiers around than usual, she remarked, her voice filled with awe and a touch of apprehension. Serena, ever the bearer of news, confirmed Lucia's observation with a solemn nod. His Majesty has issued emergency orders due to the attack, she revealed, her words carrying the weight of urgency. As they made their way back to the palace, Lucia's mind was fraught with concern for the safety of those within its walls. I thought it would be safe inside the castle, but I guess not. I hope everyone's okay, she murmured to herself, her voice tinged with worry. Meanwhile, within the confines of the palace, Eric, the Emperor, was engaged in a tense discussion with the ogres who stood before him. How are the ladies in the palace? He inquired, his voice a blend of authority and concern. Halo, one of the ogres, stepped forward to provide a report, his expression grave. We told them there wouldn't be another attack, but they still seem unnerved, he admitted, his words carrying the weight of the task entrusted to him. Turning his attention to Sir Walter, Eric posed another question, his brow furrowed with concern. Did you find any traces of ogres outside the castle, Sir Walter? He inquired, his voice tinged with urgency as he sought to assess the extent of the threat looming beyond their walls. Walter's confirmation of another ogre's proximity to the Rose Palace's outer gate prompted a furrowed brow from Eric, who wasted no time in seeking answers. How was it able to get so close? Did someone summon it? He inquired, his tone laced with a sense of urgency. Romeo, ever steadfast in his duty, offered reassurance. We'll get to the bottom of this as soon as possible, he pledged, his words carrying a note of determination. As Halo voiced concerns about how to address the palace ladies, Eric's thoughts momentarily drifted to Lucia, his mind wrestling with conflicting emotions. That doesn't concern me, or maybe it does, he mused aloud, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features. With sudden resolve, Eric's gaze hardened as he formulated a plan. Set up a stage, he instructed, his tone decisive. Halo, taken aback by the unexpected directive, sought clarification. Pardon? He inquired, confusion evident in his voice. Eric wasted no time in elaborating on his command. Call the theatrical troupe and have them perform for the ladies, he ordered, his words leaving no room for argument. As the ogres moved to carry out his orders, Eric found himself grappling with unfamiliar sensations, his thoughts consumed by the enigmatic woman who had captured his attention. Why can't I stop thinking about her? Her scent must have intoxicated my heart, he pondered, his heart heavy with the weight of newfound emotions. As Eric recalled the moment he had inadvertently clenched Lucia's hand, his thoughts were consumed by the memory, his emotions in turmoil. The softness of her touch, the warmth of her presence, lingered in his mind, creating a tumultuous swirl of feelings that he struggled to understand and control. The Emperor, known for his steadfast resolve and unyielding nature, found himself at the mercy of a single woman's influence, her enigmatic aura both captivating and confounding him. Meanwhile, Lucia stood by the window, her gaze fixed on the world outside as she wrestled with her own inner turmoil. Oh, get out of my head, she muttered under her breath, frustration evident in her tone. Just thinking about it makes me feel like my head's gonna explode. Interrupted from her reverie by the arrival of two lady servants, Lucia turned her attention to them, her demeanor casual yet guarded. Hey, Spooky, what's up? She greeted them, her voice tinged with a hint of skepticism. The lady servant wasted no time in delivering her message, her tone eager with excitement. His Majesty has ordered the theatrical troupe to put on a performance for you, she announced, her words carrying a note of anticipation. Lucia's thoughts immediately went into overdrive as she processed the news. She means for all the ladies here, not just me, she reasoned silently, her mind working to quell any unwarranted speculation. We just bumped into each other at the library. Don't go reading too much into it, she cautioned herself, her thoughts a mixture of skepticism and self-restraint. Spooky's excitement bubbled over as she shared the news, her eyes shining with anticipation. They've brought a theatrical troupe to the palace, she exclaimed, her voice filled with enthusiasm. Lucia couldn't help but smile at Spooky's infectious enthusiasm. "Ah, you're pretty excited, huh?" she remarked, her tone warm and amused. Spooky nodded eagerly, her imagination already running wild with possibilities. "I've never seen a play before. I wonder what it'll be," she exclaimed, her voice alive with curiosity. "Perhaps a love story between a poet and a noblewoman, or a love story between a vagrant and a woman of high birth," she speculated, her thoughts racing ahead to the potential dramas that awaited. She paused, her expression thoughtful as she added, "Love stories between a king and a common girl are popular these days." Lucia couldn't help but be amused by Spooky's musings. "I guess the girls in this world are just as obsessed with romance," she mused silently, her thoughts drifting momentarily to her own tangled feelings. Turning her attention back to Spooky, Lucia posed a question of her own. "Where's the performance being held?" she inquired, her curiosity piqued by the prospect of experiencing a theatrical production within the confines of the palace. Spooky's eyes lit up with excitement as she divulged the location of the upcoming performance. "In the central garden! They're building a huge stage," she exclaimed, her voice alive with anticipation. Just as the excitement of the evening's event began to settle, Serena entered the room, her presence commanding attention as she approached Lucia with a graceful bow. "My lady, I brought a cloak for you to wear to the performance tomorrow," she announced, presenting a stunning green gown for Lucia's inspection. The lady servant chimed in with her own words of encouragement, her voice brimming with admiration. "It'll be perfect for the special day. You'll look stunning," she assured Lucia, her sincerity evident in her tone. Lucia's fingers traced the intricate details of the gown as she considered its suitability. With a sense of anticipation, she slipped into the garment, her reflection in the mirror eliciting a smile of satisfaction. Turning to Serena for validation, Lucia sought her opinion. "What do you think?" she inquired, her gaze meeting Serena's with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. Serena's response was immediate and genuine. "You look splendid," she affirmed, her words a testament to Lucia's effortless elegance. With her attire confirmed and her spirits lifted, Lucia's excitement reached its peak. "Then shall we?" she proposed, her voice laced with anticipation as she prepared to embark on the evening's festivities. The Rose Palace had been meticulously adorned in preparation for the upcoming event. Every corner was meticulously attended to, with tables draped in pristine white cloths serving as the canvas for the vibrant contrast of red roses scattered around the room. The delicate fragrance of the flowers permeated the air, adding an ethereal touch to the ambience. Upon each table, wine glasses stood poised, catching the light in their crystal clarity, while trays of delectable cookies tempted guests with their irresistible allure. The clinking of glasses and the gentle hum of conversation filled the room. Impeccably attired ladies mingled and engaged in animated discussions. As the evening unfolded, anticipation mounted as guests made their way to the grand stage, a focal point of the evening's entertainment. The stage was a masterpiece in itself, adorned with intricate designs and shimmering lights, promising an unforgettable experience for all in attendance. As the ladies stepped out into the garden, they were greeted by a scene of breathtaking beauty. The once familiar landscape had been transformed into a wonderland of elegance and sophistication. They stood in awe, scarcely believing that this was the same garden they knew so well. Among the guests, a graceful swan glided serenely across the water, adding a touch of natural beauty to the scene. Its presence served as a reminder of the harmony between man-made splendor and the beauty of nature, creating a truly magical atmosphere that captivated all who beheld it. One of the ladies, visibly stunned by the transformation, remarked, "Is this truly the same garden?" Her companions shared in her amazement, their voices hushed in reverence for the splendor before them. Another lady, astounded by the transformation, chimed in, "They've completely transformed it." A lady adorned in a pink dress turned to the swan and said, "Let's sit near the front, where there's a nice view of the stage." The swan nodded in agreement as they made their way to a table. Observing the spectacle before them, one of the ladies remarked. It looks like the Emperor is finally starting to show interest in the Rose Palace. A girl dressed in blue added, I'm sure you'll be the first to win his heart, with a hint of playful banter. Another lady teased, Isn't that obvious? Why, were you planning to take him first? The girl in blue, flustered, quickly responded, Eek. That's not what I meant. Please don't get the wrong idea. The group shared a laugh, enjoying the camaraderie amidst the enchanting atmosphere. The swan, a silent observer, listened attentively to the conversation, her demeanor inscrutable amidst the lively exchange of words. Meanwhile, the anticipation in the air heightened as Lucia made her grand entrance. Draped in a magnificent green gown adorned with an array of sparkling stones, each facet catching the light and casting a mesmerizing glow, she exuded an aura of effortless elegance. As Lucia graced the gathering with her presence, whispers rippled through the room, praising her innate grace and beauty. She's so elegant, the murmurs spread. Even without lots of makeup and jewels, she's practically glowing. Accompanied by her companions, Spooky and Serena, Lucia moved gracefully through the crowd, drawing admiring glances with every step. However, as they approached the seating area, Spooky's voice held a hint of regret as she informed Lucia. All the seats near the front are taken, my lady. I'm afraid you'll have to sit in the back. Serena, echoing the sentiment, expressed her disappointment. It would have been nice to watch from up front. Despite the slight change in plans, Lucia maintained her composure with characteristic grace. That's okay, she reassured them, her tone calm and composed. I can still see from here. Though her view may have shifted, Lucia's presence remained a focal point of the evening, her regal demeanor and unwavering poise captivating all who beheld her. As Spooky expressed her disappointment, her voice tinged with sadness, she sighed. Ah, too bad. I really wanted a better view. Soon after, Eric made his entrance, his presence commanding attention as he approached Lucia. With a gentle but firm gesture, he guided Serena away from Lucia, prompting a momentary flutter of fear from Serena, who recognized him as the Lord Chamberlain. The swan, eager to convey her appreciation, hurried towards Eric, exclaiming, The stage is marvelous. Please relay my gratitude to His Majesty. Eric nodded in acknowledgement, replying with a respectful, Of course, my lady. With a warm smile, the swan extended an invitation. You've worked so hard today. Sit and watch with us. However, Eric, ever dutiful, politely declined, stating, Thank you, but I must decline. The swan clarified her intent, explaining, I didn't mean you should enjoy the show with us. You should stay to make sure everything goes smoothly since you're in charge. Eric nodded in understanding, acknowledging the responsibility entrusted to him. There are no empty seats, my lady, he replied, reaffirming his commitment to his duties. Taking a quick survey of her surroundings, the swan suggested, Oh, then perhaps one of you would be gracious enough to offer yours. The other ladies discreetly observed the unfolding conversation. However, Eric seemed determined to carry on with his duties, ignoring the swan's requests. As he briskly stepped forward, the swan called out to him, but he pressed on, his attention fully absorbed by his task. Lord Chamberlain, she called out in a futile attempt to regain his attention. Meanwhile, Lucia, in the midst of sipping her tea, was taken aback by the unexpected interruption. As Eric approached her, she registered his presence with surprise. Ha! Lord Chamberlain? She echoed, her confusion evident. With a graceful bow, Eric addressed Lucia, his focus unwavering. Is the stage visible from here? Allow me to check. I won't be but just a moment, he declared, pushing back a chair as he prepared to assess the view. Observing the exchange, the swan's expression shifted to one of disappointment as Eric once again declined her offer. Approaching him, she inquired softly, Do you have a clear view from here? However, Eric's response was curt and dismissive. Excuse me, I'm trying to focus, he retorted, his attention fully absorbed by his task at hand. Fuming with offense, The swan turned away in a whirl of rage, her hands clenched tightly as she seethed with indignation. The arrogance of him! He'll pay for that, she vowed silently, her resolve firm. Meanwhile, a girl dressed in a brown gown made her entrance, her gaze locking onto Lucia seated beside Eric. She was visibly astonished by the unexpected sight, her thoughts racing as she whispered incredulously, "Lucia?" Turning towards her, she called out, "Lucy!" Simultaneously, the swan beckoned to her, calling out, "Isla, come here!" Lucia, quick to react, responded with a click of acknowledgement. "Isla," she repeated, her curiosity piqued. At that moment, a bell rang, signaling the imminent start of the performance. A voice boomed through the room, making an announcement. "The performance will begin momentarily," setting the stage for the evening's entertainment. On the other side of the room, Jay stood with a lady dressed in pink, holding her hand tenderly as he spoke. "Accompany me to the palace. I will protect you as long as I have your love. I can endure anything." His words were filled with sincerity and devotion, casting a romantic aura amidst the bustling atmosphere of the event. As Lucia savored her tea, she remarked, "It looks like a love story between a prince and a common girl. Kind of reminds me of a musical I once saw." Eric, drawn to the aroma of the tea, inquired, "Mind if I have a cup?" Lucia, caught off guard by his sudden interest, realized. "What? Was he watching me?" Choking slightly, she replied, Sure." Concern etched on his features, Eric asked, "Are you all right?" "Why wouldn't I be?" Lucia's cheeks flushed as she stammered. "You look flushed. Do you have a fever?" Moving to take action, Eric suggested, "I'll go call for a doctor." However, Lucia, eager to dispel any concern, grabbed his arm and insisted, No, have a seat. Didn't you want something to drink?" She slid a cup of tea towards him, urging him to try it. Eric took a hesitant sip and remarked, This isn't tea." Uncertain of its contents, he added, "It's so sweet and delicious." Observing him lost in thought, Lucia asked, "Would you like some more?" In response, Eric slid his cup towards her, replying, Just a little bit." Pouring more tea into his cup, Lucia watched as Eric eagerly gulped it down. Within a minute, he exclaimed, "This is amazing," his appreciation evident in his enthusiastic response. As Lucia poured more tea, she couldn't help but wonder, "Is he trying to take all of it?" With a slight smile, she remarked, "I thought you were just gonna check on things and then go." Eric, realizing his oversight, reassured her, "Oh right, one more cup and I'll be off." Curiosity piqued, he finally inquired, "What is this?" Lucia replied, "It's apple wine," revealing the true nature of the beverage. Surprised by the revelation, Eric nodded, processing the information. "Apple wine," he repeated, his initial misconception corrected. When Lucia offered him more, he graciously accepted, saying, "Thank you." Shifting the conversation, Eric brought up Lucia's recent stay in the library. "I heard you stayed in the library for several days. Did you find what you were looking for?" he inquired. Lucia nodded, replying simply, "I found enough." Pleased by her response, Eric remarked, "That's good. You seem to like books." Lucia's thoughts drifted back to the day when Eric had saved her from the falling books. "Yeah," she admitted softly, recalling the incident vividly. Feeling a surge of emotion, Lucia squeezed her eyes shut, unable to shake the memory from her mind. "Why can't I stop thinking about that?" she wondered aloud, the events of that day lingering in her thoughts despite her best efforts to move on. Amidst the bustling ambience of the event, Eric leaned in towards Lucia, his voice a soft murmur amidst the lively chatter. "Your first lesson with Prince Alvis is tomorrow, my lady. Do you have everything you need?" he inquired, his tone tinged with a hint of concern. Lucia, her gaze meeting Eric's with unwavering confidence, offered a reassuring nod. "Yeah, I'll be okay," she affirmed, her demeanor exuding quiet assurance. Eric, ever attentive to detail, pressed further, his brows furrowing slightly in thought. "Have you decided what you're going to teach him?" he inquired, his voice gently prodding. Lucia's response came swiftly, tinged with a hint of impatience as she snapped. "It should probably be something basic since it's our first meeting." Her words, though sharp, betrayed a sense of practicality tempered by the weight of responsibility resting upon her shoulders. Yet, in an instant, Lucia's demeanor underwent a remarkable transformation. The tension that had briefly flickered in her eyes melted away, replaced by a radiant smile that illuminated her features. "Honestly," she confessed, her voice alive with excitement, "this all came about so fast. I have no idea what to do." Her words carried with them a sense of exhilaration, a testament to the whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. Despite the uncertainty looming on the horizon, Lucia's spirit remained undaunted, fueled by the prospect of the challenges that lay ahead. Eric's demeanor tensed at Lucia's sharp retort, a subtle twitch betraying his inner reaction. Later, in the grand hall of the Emperor's palace, Eric turned his attention to Jace, seeking an update on the recent ogre attack. "Any news on the ogre front?" he inquired, his voice carrying a hint of urgency. Jace, ever composed, replied, "The damage from the attack has been repaired." However, before he could elaborate further, Eric interjected, his tone laced with skepticism. "Shouldn't killing a single ogre be child's play for you?" he questioned, his expectations clear. In response, Jace's expression remained unchanged as he calmly explained, "I'm just a normal foot soldier now. I didn't want to draw attention by killing it single-handedly. I just made sure no one got hurt." A hint of amusement danced in his eyes as he added, "I'll bet you're glad you let me stay." Walter, standing beside them, joined the conversation, his voice carrying a note of concern. "Did you find out where it came from?" he inquired, his brow furrowing with worry. Jace shook his head, replying, "We weren't able to figure that out, but we believe it was targeting the Rose Palace." The gravity of the situation hung heavy in the air, each word exchanged between them laden with the weight of responsibility. As they grappled with the aftermath of the attack, Eric's expression grew solemn as he continued, "It didn't show interest in anything else. I have a feeling there might be more." Jace, ever observant, changed the subject, turning his attention to Eric's role within the palace. "By the way," he began, "I've seen you playing around the palace. Why choose to be a Lord Chamberlain? You could be anyone you want." Eric hesitated for a moment, his mind racing with unspoken thoughts. After a brief pause, he reached into his pocket, rummaging around before withdrawing a bag of coins. Jace caught it effortlessly, his eyes widening in surprise at the unexpected offering. Eric's intent remained unclear as he ordered, "Go buy me some apple wine." Jace, taken aback by the sudden request, hesitated before asking, "Right now?" Eric's response was firm and unwavering, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Yes, right now," he affirmed, his gaze fixed ahead as he turned to leave. As Eric departed, Jace couldn't help but wonder about the sudden urge for wine. Why does he suddenly want to drink? He mused, perplexed by the unexpected turn of events. He mused, the mystery of Eric's actions lingering in his thoughts as he prepared to fulfill the unexpected request. As Eric strode through the palace hallway, his thoughts drifted to the ongoing class at the Rose Palace. Class must have started by now. He speculated, his curiosity piqued. I wonder what she's teaching him. He paused, a wry smile tugging at the corners of his lips. What a peculiar girl, he mused. The way she eats and drinks alone in the middle of the night, and while everyone else drinks tea, only she chooses wine. Taking a moment to reflect, Eric inhaled deeply, a sense of contentment washing over him. Well, I had a good time, thanks to her, he acknowledged, his appreciation evident in his tone. Maybe I should go check in on them, he suggested, a flicker of determination in his eyes. Meanwhile, in the Rose Palace, Lucia and Alvis sat together, the air tinged with anticipation as the class commenced. With a hint of impatience, Alvis turned to Lucia, prompting her with a pointed, Well, you're the teacher. Teach something. The challenge hung in the air, awaiting Lucia's response as she prepared to impart her knowledge to the young prince. Lucia's response was unexpected yet firm as she turned the tables on Alvis. What about you? You're the student, she challenged, her tone laced with determination. Alvis, taken aback by her reversal, could only manage a surprised, "What?" Unfazed, Lucia elaborated. "If I don't know what my student wants to learn, how am I supposed to teach?" Logic resonated with Alvis, who pondered her words carefully before responding. What do I want to learn?" A mischievous glint sparked in his eyes as he added, "You're not going to regret saying that, are you?" With a confident smile, Lucia shook her head. "Nope, as long as it's nothing dangerous," she assured him, her resolve unwavering. Energized by the prospect of learning something new, Alvis rose from his seat, determination evident in his every step. His gaze fell upon a nearby box filled with accessories, containing charts, scissors, and tape. With purposeful strides, he approached the box, his mind already racing with ideas. "I'd like to make flowers," he declared, his enthusiasm palpable. Lucia raised an eyebrow, amusement coloring her question. "Are there not enough for you outside?" Undeterred, Alvis seized a sheet of red paper and began to manipulate it with skillful hands, the paper rustling softly beneath his touch. "Real flowers wilt too quickly," he explained, his focus unwavering. "I want some that won't." Intrigued by his choice, Lucia pressed further, asking, "What kind of flower?" The stage was set for a unique and creative lesson, with Alvis leading the way as he embarked on a journey of discovery under Lucia's guidance. Alvis hesitated, uncertain of his creative direction. "Well, I haven't decided yet," he admitted, his tone tinged with indecision. Lucia, ever supportive, offered reassurance. "Okay, I'm sure you'll figure something out," she encouraged, her voice gentle and comforting. Observing Alvis's struggle, Lucia couldn't help but approach him, her steps deliberate as she closed the distance between them. However, inwardly she couldn't help but muse. "I'll give him points for effort, but I don't really think he set out to make a weird lump." As Alvis's frustration grew, he found himself unable to form the desired flower, his irritation mounting with each failed attempt. With a frustrated sigh, he crumpled the paper in his hands, declaring, "I'm going to start over." Before he could act, Lucia intervened, her actions catching him off guard. She gently took the paper from his grasp, causing him to look up in surprise. "Hold on," she instructed softly, her expression calm yet determined. With a swift motion, Lucia crumpled the paper once more, eliciting a bewildered reaction from Alvis. "Huh! Wow!" he sputtered in confusion. Unfazed by his reaction, Lucia proceeded with purpose, her hands deftly snipping the paper to form delicate petals. "Ms. Lucia, if you're upset with me, just say so," Alvis protested, his confusion evident in his tone. Lucia simply smiled, her focus on the task at hand. "Watch closely," she instructed, her movements precise as she demonstrated the art of crafting paper flowers with delicate precision. Lucia skillfully crafted a rose from the paper petals, presenting it to Alvis with a flourish. "Ta-da!" she exclaimed proudly, her eyes alight with satisfaction. "You get this beautiful texture when you unfold crumpled paper. It's like a real flower." Alvis's astonishment was palpable as he beheld the paper rose before him, his disbelief evident in his wide-eyed expression. Undeterred by his reaction, Lucia turned to Serena with a request. "It still needs some finishing touches, Serena. Some rose water, please," she instructed, her voice calm and composed. Serena, ever dutiful, bowed before Lucia and swiftly returned with a bowl of rose water. With practiced grace, Lucia dipped the paper petals into the fragrant liquid, transforming them into a vibrant red rose. Turning back to Alvis, she presented the completed creation with a smile. "What do you think?" she inquired, awaiting his verdict. Alvis's response was immediate and enthusiastic. "It's perfect!" he exclaimed, his eyes shining with newfound admiration for Lucia's skill. With a gentle chuckle, Lucia offered a profound insight. You see, flowers can bloom even from wrinkled paper. In fact, everything in life is like making paper flowers, she reflected. Sometimes you fold the wrong way, and sometimes the paper gets wrinkled. But if you take things step by step, soon you'll have a bouquet. She asked him, Did you enjoy class today? Hearing this, he flushed. And with joy he shouts, Yeah. Elvis asked her, Can I ask you something? She replied, Of course. Elvis asked her, Imagine there was someone who never missed his parents. Why would you think that is? She gets nervous and asked, Are you talking about yourself? He replied, No, the emperor. Lucia thinks, Could we maybe focus on class? She said, Well, why don't you try thinking about it for a minute? She said, Can you imagine His Majesty missing his parents? What would it look like? He tries but failed and said, I can't picture it. Lucia said, What if you try pretending you're him? Elvis imagined himself as emperor wearing dress which emperor used to wear. He said, I think I'd want a hug. And, I'd worry that my people wouldn't want to follow me since I don't know how to be a real emperor. Lucia said, That's right. It's not a question of right or wrong. It's about understanding other people and their situations. Elvis said, I know. He probably doesn't want to look weak in front of anyone. Lucia, giving him some papers, said to him, How about dyeing the paper before we make flowers? Meanwhile, Eric stands behind the door seeing them. He saw Elvis laughing. Seeing him, he thinks, it's only his first class, and he's already goofing off. Seeing Lucia, he thinks, she's certainly dressed up like a teacher. Eric smiled while seeing her. After some time, Spooky was taking care of flowers and garden. Lucia comes and said, Spooky? She gets shocked by her sudden appearance. She turns and Lucia found she was eating those roses, and Spooky said, Mamuma. My lady. She said, What are you doing? Lucia said, I heard the Lord Chamberlain appeared when you had a petal in your mouth. She said, That was just a coincidence. She said, Come on. Either swallow it or spit it out. Spooky swallowed it and said. Lucia gets confused and asked her, Did you actually just swallow that? The servant behind Lucia said, It's all right, my lady. That species of rose is safe to eat. She said, There are over 50 kinds of roses around the palace. Some have a remarkable fragrance, and some, like this one, are edible. Lucia asked her, Can I pick whichever ones I want? She replied, Yes, except for the ones in the front and rear gardens. She said there was a lady who used to pick rose petals to put in her bathwater, but ever since she poisoned herself. She said, Anyway, we've been ordered to get rid of all the roses here. Lucia gets confused and asked, What? Why? She replied, They said it was to prepare for the next tea time. Hearing this, she thinks, What a waste. She said, Could you bring all these roses to my room? The servant said, Yes, my lady. But there are quite a lot. It'll take you some time. Meanwhile, Jace comes and shouts, I'll do it. He with a smile said, Greetings, Lady Lucia. It is I, Jace. He said to Lucia, I'd like to help. Just say the word. Lucia said, That's very thoughtful of you, but... He interrupts her asking, What do I need to do? Lucia said, Carefully cut the stems so you don't damage any of the petals. Jace said, Yes, lady. The servant asked her, What are you planning to do with all these roses, my lady? Lucia replied, Well, I was thinking. Meanwhile, the servant noticed Jace peeking towards Lucia. She said to him, Are you eavesdropping? How dare you disrespect my lady? Jace replied, No, I was simply stretching my neck. Lucia's servant said to her, Let's go inside, my lady. Quickly. They leave, and Jace, seeing them leaving, thinks, He recalls the words Eric said to him, Keep an eye on Lady Lucia and help her if it looks like she needs it. Jace thinks, What an odd bird. He couldn't care less about the other ladies, but he wants to know everything about Lady Lucia. He thinks, What on earth is she planning to do with all these? Does she think they'll all fit in her bathtub? Meanwhile, Jace's trainer comes and seeing him gets confused. Seeing him, he thinks, what's he doing with that spear? Is he trying to butcher the rose bushes? He comes closer thinking, he ought to be using shears instead, huh? Meanwhile, in the palace, Eric saw different items prepared by ladies, including food. He asked the butler, the ladies made all of this? The butler replied, yes, your majesty. Every last item. Eric said, impressive. If we sell all this, it'll more than cover the palace expenses. Seeing the food, he said, I see there's food as well. The butler said, Lady Swan prepared it. Eric dipped his finger in a soup and tasted it. He asked the redhead guy next to him, why don't you have a taste? The guy tasted, saying, this? He said, this brings back memories. May I have some more? Eric replied, absolutely. Eating the food, the butler thinks, thank God His Majesty has found something to his liking. Perhaps I should give it a try. He gets shocked when he tastes the food and said, Ack? The butler asked, is it supposed to taste like this? The guy said, you've probably never tasted anything like it, Halo. He said, it's made with blood. Hearing this, he gets shocked and thinks, blood? The other guy there said, oh, this tastes just like the soup they used to give us on the battlefield. Halo said, it appears your army soup includes a special ingredient. The guy replied, special, yes, but not expensive. The only area we spare no expense is with weapons. He said, it's important for soldiers to get proper nutrients. Halo asked, you mean meat? He replied, exactly. The redhead guy asked him, do you know what kind of meat this is? What is it? He said, during the war, we had to make soup from dead horses. The ones that had been dead for a while were the best, since their blood had turned nice and solid. The flavors really come out when you boil it for a long time. Hearing this, Halo gets shocked. The guy said, yeah, if you boil hardened blood, it tastes just like meat. Halo turned shouting, heavens! The GY asked, why do you think she chose to make this soup from our war days? Eric said, I suppose we'll have to wait to find out. Eric asked, and what about that one girl? The guy replied, she hasn't left her chambers all day. Eric said, I see. Eric thinks, what has she got up her sleeves this time? Meanwhile, in training ground, a redhead girl was training. A man asked her, you've improved, little sister. She asked him, Romeo, when did you get here? He replied, I came over as soon as I got home. She said, you know we don't live that far from the palace. Why don't you visit more often? He replied, there's too much to do. His Majesty won't leave me alone. She said, I'm going to the palace with father tomorrow. He asked her, the palace? Why? Romeo thinks, is the Emperor thinking of marrying Trudy? Surely not with all those other women there. Trudy said, my friend Isla's staying there. I wanted to visit her. Meanwhile, after some time, the ladies gathered in garden for tea time. The ladies murmured seeing Eric and Romeo. Romeo said to him, I'm so honored that you're having tea time in the garden just for me. Eric replied, it's not for you. Romeo said, the idea of making all the ladies work must have come from one of those women down there. Should I try to guess which one? He said, that's the Grand Duke's granddaughter, isn't it? I see the family resemblance. She has the other ladies in an iron grip. Funny, isn't it? Even amongst themselves they all hold different ranks. He said, the world is naturally divided into people who are above and below. I'm grateful that at least this empire is ruled by a man who won't abuse his powers. Eric said to him, don't be ridiculous. What do you think of the ladies? Romeo said, I believe your officials are very loyal. Eric asked, you're saying the officials who force their daughters to come here are loyal? Romeo said, there are sweet ladies, sensual ladies, even a handful of naive ones. They each have their own color. In other words, each of them is unique in their own way. He said that one has a red aura around her. It reminds me of the roses. Eric asked him about Lucia, what about her? White, since she's invisible? Romeo said, white stands for purity. It's fine for babies, but for her. I think she has a black aura. Plain black, like the night sky. He said, I see it now. The one who came up with the idea was her, right? He asked, am I correct? Eric replied, no. Meanwhile, a blonde girl said to Lucia, Isla's friend is coming to visit today. She said Isla's friend didn't want Isla to enter the palace. She didn't want to see Isla having a hard time. Lucia said she sounds like a good friend. She said yes, Isla's friend is a kind person. Although she would rather carry a sword than find a husband. Holding a cup, she said, if Isla becomes Empress, Isla will set her up with someone nice. Although it's hard to say if that'll ever happen. She said Isla's pretty, but she knows she's not the prettiest here. Isla may not be as pretty as Lucia or Swan, but Isla thinks she's pretty enough to become Empress. She whispers in Lucia's ear. Lucia's very pretty. She'll need to be very careful. She said, Lucia smells like roses. When Isla goes back, she'll take a bath with rose petals too. Meanwhile, Swan asked Lucia, you're going too, aren't you, Lucia? I'll let them know. Lucia gets confused and asked, going where? She thinks, I was so busy talking to Isla that I have no idea what she's going on about. Meanwhile, she heard the ladies saying, we're trusting you, Swan. I believe in you, Swan. Lucia asked the blonde girl, what are they talking about? She tries to find Spooky, but she failed and thinks, where did Spooky go? Meanwhile, Eric comes and said, Lady Lucia. Seeing him, she asked, Lord Chamberlain? He said, allow me to escort you to your chambers. Swan said that Lord Chamberlain is attending to her again, just like he did during the play. Do you think They whispered, oh my word. Is she fooling around with the Lord Chamberlain? I suppose she fell for his looks. He said to her, your servant fell in the mud and began crying. Hearing this, Swan asked, really? Why doesn't she just change her clothes and come back? Eric said she seemed more upset by the teasing than by her dirty clothes. I told her to go take a rest. Aren't you thoughtful of that servant girl? So, I intend to do the same thing to the servant who harassed her. Hearing this, Swan gets shocked. Eric said to Lucia, let's go, my lady. Isla said to Swan, the Lord Chamberlain is closest to His Majesty. No good will come off provoking him. Swan replied, he thinks it's something just because the Emperor is in his corner. He's nothing but a speck of dust. Isla shouts, Swan. Swan, drinking the tea, said to her, no need to get upset. A little gold will settle the matter. Hearing this, Isla thinks, the Lord Chamberlain doesn't seem like the type to be swayed by gold. Meanwhile, Lucia asked Eric, is it because of me? He asked her, what do you mean? She replied, Spooky falling in the mud. She gets upset and said, I don't have any power, so whenever they attack me during tea time, I always just let it slide. She said, I understand what they're trying to do. They all think I'm soft, and now Spooky is suffering because of it. She thinks, now that I think about it, the Lord Chamberlain speaks his mind and he's not afraid of Swan. She clenched her hand thinking, I know, I shouldn't just complain. I have to pull myself together, so I can take care of my people. Meanwhile, Eric said, my lady. She gets surprised and gets out of her thoughts. Spooky was standing behind the door. Spooky gets nervous when she knocks the door. Lucia said to Eric, thank you, you may go now. Eric said, my lady. Do you know who the most powerful person in the place is? Lucia takes a guess and said, Swan? But her guess was wrong, as Eric said no. He said, no one is stronger, and no one is weaker. He said, you have forgotten? This is the Rose Palace, you're all equals here. He said, don't bother trying to figure out who has the most power. Strength comes from will alone. Lucia said, thank you for the advice. Eric replied, I shall return to my duties. While he was leaving, Lucia said, wait. she said to her servant Serena, "Can you bring me a bottle?" Serena replied, "Yes, my lady." Lucia steps closer to him and said, holding a bottle, "Come to think of it, I've seen you around the place quite often, even though I haven't heard about any poisonings." Hearing this, he starts sweating and said, I had to prepare for the play, and a new lady is coming soon, so they are things I have to take care of." Lucia gives him the bottle and said, "Here, it's made from roses. I just made it for fun, but I wanted to give you some as a thank you." Lucia said, "Let me know how is it." Eric takes the bottle with him to his office. Seeing the bottle, he thinks, so this is what she did with all those of roses. She must really love drinking. He picks the bottle and opened it. He drank it through the bottle directly. After drinking it, he thinks, "I quite like this. It feels as though roses are blooming inside of me." He said, "The taste, on the other hard." Meanwhile, Halo comes and said, "Grand Duke Bahamut is here to see you, Your Majesty." Grand Duke Bahamut is a greedy old man who sent his granddaughter to live in the place. Eric said to Halo, "Show him in." He comes in. He bowed and said, "Greetings, Your Majesty." He said, "What a pleasant fragrance. Have you been to the Rose Place recently?" He said, "I hear you normally stay holed up in here practicing your swordsmanship." Eric replied, "Well, I still have much to learn. To what to do I owe the honor?" He said, "Your Majesty, after hearing how much only my granddaughter is suffering, I had no choice but to come see you." Eric responded, "Indeed, she's the only person who can sway you." He said, "Please grant the ladies of the Rose Palace a day of freedom. My granddaughter has grown weary from all her waiting." Eric, tapping the table, replied, "Quite a few people seem to be concerned about the palace lately." He said, "She is free to leave if that's the way she feels." The Grand Duke laughed and said, "Ha ha ha, personally I'd love nothing more than to give her wings to free fly. I thought prepare a hunting tournament might give team a change of pace." He said, "We can't expose team to dangerous animals, but rabbits and deer should do just fine." Eric said, "Do as you please." He bowed and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." After he leaves, Eric thinks, "Maybe I had too much to drink. I'm getting a bit drowsy." Holding the bottle, he thinks, "But my headache is gone." Roses express passion and desire. Their subtle scent encourages people to open up. He thinks, "I think I'll be able to get a good night's sleep." Meanwhile, a servant said to Halo, "Mr. Halo, there's someone here to see His Majesty." But he asked him to keep quiet. Halo said to him, "His Majesty is asleep, please leave." "I'm terribly sorry, but could you come back later?" It was Trudy, and she tries to peek inside. Trudy saw him sleeping on his chair. She said, "It's as if he's glowing." The servant said, "Pardon?" After some time, Eric woke up and said, "My whole body is stiff from sleeping in that chair, and my head hurts from the wine." Meanwhile, he gets surprised seeing Swan standing there with some servants. He bowed and said, "My lady?" Swan said, "I see you've grown close with Lucia." Eric replied, "I'm only taking precautions." Swan said, "If we're lucky, there will be no more incident for you to take precautions against." She said, "I think there was a little misunderstanding during the last time. I hope this will help clear the air." They leave the moment they gave him the box. Seeing the box, he thinks, "What's this?" He opens it and thinks, "Is this?" Lucia was walking in the hall. She was upset and thinks, "I don't want anyone to get hurt or die because of me." She thinks, "Even if this world isn't real, this is my reality now. I have to protect myself and those around me, so that no one will think they can look down on me. I'll show them I'm not pushover." Meanwhile, Eric comes and said, "What are you doing?" She gets shocked by his sudden appearance. She turns and said, "Geez, you scared me. No wonder they call you a ninja. Don't just sneak up on people like that." Eric asked, "A ninja?" "I announced myself when I came in." Lucia asked, "Anyway, do I look fierce to you? Would you be scared of me?" Hearing this, Eric gets confused. He replied, "Not even a little. Are you planning to hunt with your fists instead of a bow and arrow? Lucia gets confused and asked, Hunt? Eric said Swan's grandfather, the Grand Duke Bahamut, is holding a hunting tournament. I came to prepare weapons for the ladies before the hunt. He said if you would like to look fiercer, I can have your armor specially tailored for you. Meanwhile, hearing this, Lucia gets flustered and said, Wait. I don't want to join a hunting tournament. Eric said, Then I'll let them know you won't be participating. He said, Oh, and thank you for the drink. I quite enjoyed it. Lucia replied, Glad to hear. Turns out the longer you brew it, the stronger the scent. Lucia turns and he asked her, You brew your own drinks? She replied, Not just drinks. I've been trying to make different dishes out of roses too. She said, It's a lot harder than I thought. The scent of the roses tends to overpower everything else. Here is a rose apple pie I made. Eric eats the pie and said, It's not sweet. Lucia said, You don't like it? Everyone else said it was okay. Eric raised his empty plate saying, It feels like eating an apple pie-shaped rose. It's still good. Lucia said, Oh, you want more? 1 second. She moving towards the pie to take some more for him thinks, I'm glad he likes it. I'll give him another slice. Meanwhile, her dress stuck in her shoe causing her to fall. But Eric catches her. He said, You really must be careful. Lucia said, Thank you. She thinks, Yikes, that scared me. Why am I getting a sense of déjà vu? She thinks, that was a completely different person, but why does it feel the same? Meanwhile, Serena dashed towards her saying, My lady. Eric said to her, Why did you give her such a long dress? She could trip and injure herself at any moment. Serena replied, Apologies, my lord. I'll take full responsibility. Eric said to her, You failed to take care of your lady properly. You're no longer needed. Meanwhile, Lucia said, I'm okay, you don't have to. Eric interrupts her saying, If we let this slide, it'll only happen again. Lucia said, It's okay, really. She sighed and thinks, He's totally overreacting, I didn't even fall. Eric said, Still, she should be punished. Lucia said, Well, if it happens again, you can catch me like you just did. Please, just let it slide. Eric said, All right. Please be more careful. She sighed and replied, I will. Meanwhile, Isla comes and shouts, Lucia. She said, I didn't realize you were here, Lord Chamberlain. When will Isla be able to get her weapon? Eric bowed and replied, We're still making preparations. Isla replied, I can't wait. Isla said, What's with the long faces? Did something happen? Lucia replied, No, nothing at all. She said to Serena, Can you get me a change of clothes? She replied, Yes, my lady. Isla said, Your face is all red. Do you have a fever? Let Isla take a look. Isla studied healing, you know. Lucia shakes her hand saying, I'm okay. I'm not sick. Isla stares at her face and said, I can still smell the roses. Your eyes look clear and in focus. Oh, Lucia's lips are redder than Isla's. Then is your face red because... She smiled and said, Oh my. You were thinking about someone you like? Hearing this, Lucia gets flustered and shouts, What? No. Hearing Isla's words, Eric glanced at Lucia. Isla said, I read that when a woman thinks of a man she likes, her face turns red. Of course, we all have our eyes on His Majesty, but it couldn't have been him, since none of us have even met him. Hearing Isla's words, she gets nervous and Isla asked her, Are you all right? Isla asked, Wait, have you seen His Majesty in person? Lucia shakes her hand saying, No. I don't know what he looks like. Isla sighed and said then again, If even Swan hasn't seen him, I doubt anyone else has. Isla wonders when we'll ever be able to meet him. Isla said, Oh, right. Isla is going to participate in the hunting contest. Isla feels sorry that Lucia had to go because of her, so Isla volunteered. Lucia asked her, You volunteered because of me? She turns and said, I told the Lord Chamberlain I wasn't going to participate. She noticed he was gone and thinks, Huh? Serena, holding Lucia's dress, said, "The Lord Chamberlain just left." She said, "He went to order Lady Isla's weapon." Lucia asked, "What?" "She thinks hunting? I've only seen it in documentaries. Do I have to?" Meanwhile, Isla smiled and said, "Isla can't wait to leave the palace. It's been so long." She said, "Oh, right. Isla came to tell you about the friend she met yesterday." Lucia asked, "The one you told me about?" Isla said, "She's so much prettier than when Isla last saw her. Whoever marries her will be the luckiest man in the empire." Isla said, "No, the luckiest man will be His Majesty when he marries Isla. Whoever marries Trudy will be second." "So you met her in the palace?" "Yes, she came with the Duke, her father. It was only for a few hours, but it felt like the good old days." Isla said, "Isla also wishes to smell like roses. Can you help her?" Lucia replied, "Sure." Meanwhile, Trudy and his brother Romeo was going somewhere in a carriage. Romeo asked, "Did something happen?" Trudy replied, "No, I was just thinking about how magnificent the palace is." Romeo asked, "Did you meet your friend?" Trudy replied, "I did." Romeo asked her, "Did something happen to her?" She replied, "No, Isla's doing well. She's as bright and cheerful as ever." Romeo asked, "Then why do you look so glum?" Trudy said, "Well, I actually went to the palace to see the emperor." Romeo said, "The emperor doesn't agree to meet just anyone. Is that why you look so disappointed?" Trudy said, "I didn't get the chance to meet him, but I did catch a glimpse of his face. I was talking to Master Halo when the door opened slightly." Romeo asked her, "You know Halo?" Trudy replied, "Yes, he's the man who sweats profusely whenever he sees me." She said, "He disappeared when I told him you're my brother." Romeo said, "That's him, all right." Trudy said, "Romeo, I want to enter the Rose Palace." She said, "I want to marry the emperor." Hearing this, Romeo gets shocked and asked, "What?" Romeo sighed and said, "No, Trudy. Don't do this to me." Trudy said, "I know. You and father had a falling out because you opposed his wishes and chose to serve His Majesty. Then you followed His Majesty off to war without even telling me." Romeo said, "The Count has already disowned me. You shouldn't disappoint him too." Trudy said, "It's different this time." She said, "Back then, His Majesty was just a prince, only second in line for the throne. Now he's the emperor and is writing a new chapter in history." She said, "Besides, father came to the palace with me to help me become Empress." Meanwhile, Eric was sitting in his office holding some paper, lost in her thoughts. He recalls Isla's world. "Were you thinking about someone you like?" He thinks, there's no way Lucia was thinking about the emperor. She doesn't even know she's seen his face before. Unlike the other ladies, she's not clinging to the hope of meeting me. Meanwhile, Walter comes and said, "Your Majesty." Eric asked him, "Have you anything to report on the Grand Duke's whereabouts, Walter?" Walter said, "Grand Duke Bahamut visited the treasury before he left. He said it seems someone left the door open on purpose." Eric thinks, sounds like the palace still isn't completely mine yet. Walter tells, it seems as though he took the pendant necklace. Eric thinks, the necklace Swan brought me was taken from the treasury? Eric said to Walter, "Bring me Jace. We're doubling the security around the Rose Palace." Meanwhile, after some time, Eric was standing in garden next to a boy wearing a brown dress. The boy asked him, "But my lord, how am I supposed to keep Lady Swan under surveillance?" He starts sweating and said, "I'm not a maid. If I get too close to her, she'll notice right away." Eric said, "You'll figure something out." The boy said, "I'll do my best since they're your orders. But this is beyond me." Eric said, "Still, do what you can." Eric asked him, "Is there something you'd like to say?" He replied, "No, my lord." Meanwhile, Isla and Lucia were practicing in training area, and Isla asked her. Isla has never fired a bow before. "This is fun. What do you think, Lucia?" Lucia, placing her bow on table, said, "I don't think it suits me. I'm gonna stop here." Isla said, "All right. Isla will practice a little longer." Spooky asked Lucia, How was archery practice, lady? Lucia sighed and replied, It's really hard. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it. Spooky said, I'm sure you'll do just fine. Spooky, noticing something, said to Lucia, Look, my lady. They saw Jace sitting on ground. He fell asleep sitting there. He opens his eyes and starts blinking. Seeing Lucia, he suddenly raised and said, Lady Lucia, when did you get here? Lucia replied, Just now. She said, This is to thank you for helping me with the roses, Jace. She said, It's wine and cookies. There's plenty, so feel free to share with the other soldiers. Jace said, It smells delicious. Thank you. Meanwhile, a lady asked Swan, Is it true, Swan? Bad luck comes to whomever wears this necklace. Swan replied, Well, it was originally meant to protect the wearer. The lady asked, Why would you have such a thing? Swan replied, It was a gift. I was told to use it well. Swan moves the necklace towards her, and she gets scared. Swan said, Well, want a closer look? Swan said, Haha. You didn't think I'd put it around your neck, did you? The lady replied, You scared me. Swan said, It was actually meant for someone else. Swan said, Lucia? The lady said, They already say she's not right in the head. Do you have to make it worse? Meanwhile, she thinks, Did Lucia do something to her? Don't tell me. Is it because of the Lord Chamberlain? The lady asked, What if she recognizes it? Swan replied, I prepared several similar necklaces just in case. If every lady participating in the hunt wears one, she won't suspect a thing. She said, The necklaces will simply indicate that they are ladies of the palace. She won't notice a difference unless she looks carefully. I also gave an identical necklace to the Lord Chamberlain. Swan with a smirk said, But this is all just between you and me. Understood? A servant comes to Lucia with the necklace and said these are to be worn by the ladies participating in the hunt. Seeing it, Lucia thinks, A necklace? She thinks, Why is she saying that like it's an order? She turns and said, I don't think it goes with my outfit. I'll think about it. The servant said, But Lady Swan said. Lucia interrupts her saying, I know. You can just leave it there. The servant said, Yes, my lady. Lucia said to Spooky, Spooky, can you ask around and find out if the other ladies were given necklaces too? I need to know if it's safe to wear. She replied, Yes, my lady. Lucia thinks, whatever Swan is planning, I have no intention of going along with it. Lucia wears a dress and said, I have to hunt in a dress? That's so annoying. Serena said, when you ride a horse, you need to wear multiple layers so your undergarments don't show. Lucia said, but this is gonna get dirty as soon as I step outside. Serena said, the Lord Chamberlain requested that everyone wear bright clothing. Lucia thinks, they just do anything they want. Outside of palace, Spooky comes to Lucia and said, my lady. Lucia said, that was quick. Spooky said, all the other ladies also received necklaces. I think it's safe to wear. Lucia thinks, was I being too paranoid? Spooky said, we'll be following in a separate carriage, my lady. Meanwhile, Swan's servant was hearing their conversation. Luca wears the necklace and sits in the carriage. Swan's servant went to her and said, my lady. She whispered in her ear, Lady Lucia is wearing the necklace. Hearing this, Swan smirked and asked, is that so?